Chapter 1353. Miss Xiaomu, I'm not related to you in any way. Your life or death has nothing to do with me. Now that I have a family, I won't marry anyone else, much less a foreign woman. So you better go back. Come on, send Miss Xiaomu to the Wen Nation's emissary group. Outside the Yinshan residence, Lisa Xuan turned to look at Su Xiaomu and said coldly after comforting Han Yushi. Han Yushi was stunned. Just as she was about to plead for mercy, Lisa Xuan waved his hand to stop her. She suddenly felt a little upset in her heart, but when she thought that once Lisa Xuan decided on something, even 10 horses couldn't pull him back, she shut her mouth and stopped trying to persuade him. She turned to look at Su Hua and Xiaomu with sympathy. She couldn't help but start to worry about the tragic future of this Japanese woman. In fact, she wasn't the only one who felt bad. The guards of the Li family who were present couldn't help but feel their hearts sink after hearing Lisa Xuan's heartless words. Although they didn't know Su was Xiaomu before, her appearance today still gave them a good impression. It had to be said that it was easier to take advantage of a good-looking person in many ways. Su Xiaomu's body trembled at this moment, and her face turned ashen. She kowtowed to Lisa Xuan and said, "Marquis Owen, please take me in." "I can do anything." Lisa Xuan frowned and said, "What are you waiting for? Take her away. Send her back to Honglu Temple." Pang Feiji's heart trembled. He quickly bowed and said, "Yes." After that, he went up and wanted to pull Su with Xiaomu up from the ground. "No, Xiaomu doesn't want to go back." Su Mai's summer eyes suddenly became agitated. While Pang Feiji was pulling her up, she suddenly struggled with strength that came from nowhere. She broke free from Pang Feiji's unguarded hands, and her head directly crashed into the shaft of the carriage that was beside them. In her mind, since Lisa Xuan didn't take her in, she would rather die than go back to Wen Nation and be tortured. Because once she was sent to the Wen Nation's emissary group, it would be difficult for her to die, even if she wanted to. No, Han Yushi's eyes widened. Her heart felt as if it had been struck by a hammer. No. There was another person who shouted along with Han Yushi, and that was Pang Feiji. Back then, old Pang had also been on the battlefield and killed countless people. At this moment, when he saw that Su Meimu was about to die in front of him, his iron heart suddenly felt an inexplicable pain. Su Xia's actions were too sudden. Almost no one had time to react. Of course, the main reason was that no one had expected this woman to be so unyielding. Whoosh! Seeing that Su Xiaomu was about to crash into the shaft of the carriage, with her speed, she would definitely lose her life on the spot. At this critical moment, Lisa Xuan used the orchid butterfly steps and suddenly disappeared from his original position. In the next moment, he had already appeared beside the carriage. He lightly slapped the carriage with his palm, and with a pung sound, the carriage actually moved 10 steps away, leaving behind a large wheel mark on the ground. Without the carriage, Sumo Summer, I naturally relied on her body's inertia and fell heavily to the ground. Although the fall wasn't fatal, the sharp pain from her body made her unable to help but frown deeply. She couldn't get up from the ground for a long time. "Miss Xiaomu, what is the meaning of this?" Lisa Xuan looked at Su Xia on the ground and said coldly. Although this woman's life and death had nothing to do with him, he didn't want to see this woman die in front of his own house. "Since the Marquis of Yong and doesn't want to take me in, I will live a life worse than death when I go back. Why not just die now? At least it will be easier." Su Xia raised her head and looked at Lisa Xuan as she said this. Although her voice was weak, it was incomparably firm. Everyone could feel the will to die in her heart at this moment. Lisa Xuan's expression didn't change. He coldly snorted and said, "Humph. You could die if you want, but you can't die in Yinshan. Feiji, go knock her out and send her back to the Wei Nation's diplomatic corps." Pang Feiji's eyes revealed a trace of reluctance. He gritted his teeth and went forward with cupped fists and said, "Marquis, your subordinate boldly hopes that Marquis can take Miss Xiaomu in. Since she is a Wei Nation's princess who has been deposed, you can—" "Shut up!" Lisa Xuan shouted loudly, interrupting Pang Feiji's pleading. Then, he took a big step forward and came in front of Su Xiaomu. Before the latter could react, he chopped Su Xiaomu's neck with his hand. Su Xiaomu instantly fainted in despair and unwillingness. Li Zixuan turned around and looked at Pang Feiji. He said coldly, "You're getting bolder and bolder. You dare to disobey my orders?" Seeing that Li Zixuan was angry, Pang Feiji's face was instantly covered in sweat. He quickly knelt on one knee and cupped his fists. "Your subordinate doesn't dare. Please forgive me, Marquis." "Oomph. Then why are you still standing there? Hurry up and send her back to Honglu Temple." Li Zixuan glared at Pang Feiji and said, "Yes." Pang Feiji fell helpless and could only accept the order with cupped fists. Getting up from the ground, Pang Feiji ordered people to carry the unconscious Su Xiaomu to the carriage. Then, he jumped on the carriage and prepared to drive the carriage down the mountain. "Wait," Li Zixuan suddenly said. Pang Feiji was overjoyed. He thought that Li Zixuan had changed his mind. He quickly jumped off the carriage and walked quickly to Li Zixuan's side. He bowed and said, "Marquis, do you have any other orders?" Unexpectedly, Li Zixuan waved his hand coldly and said, "Follow me." Under the puzzled gaze of Han Yushi and the others, Li Zixuan led Pang Feiji to an old locust tree that was dozens of feet away. Li Zixuan was silent for a moment and said, "Feiji, today is the first time you have disobeyed my orders. Moreover, it is because of a Japanese woman." Pang Feiji thought that Li Zixuan was going to chase him away because of this matter. He quickly bowed and said, "Marquis, I know my mistake. Please give me another chance, Marquis." Li Zixuan shook his head and said, "This Su Xiaomu is indeed a pitiful person. This Marquis doesn't blame you for having a compassionate heart. This Marquis isn't an unreasonable person. In a moment, send her to the Honglu Temple and hand her over to my brother on the mountain. As for what happens afterwards, if you're interested in this girl and are really willing to save her, then don't come back tonight. Act according to the circumstances. If you're not interested in this girl, then directly come back after sending her off." Pang Feiji was shocked. He was about to explain when Li Zixuan waved his hand and said, "You don't have to explain. You decide what to do. The most important thing in life is not to regret. Go." After that, Li Zixuan directly left with his hands behind his back and brought Han Yushi back to the courtyard. Pang Feiji was stunned, and his expression kept changing. After a long time, he knelt down in the direction of the courtyard and cowed out. He said in a low voice, "Thank you, Marquis. For the rest of my life, Feiji will go through water and tread on fire for Marquis. I will not hesitate to die 1,000 times." A horse carriage came down from the cloud mountain. Behind the horse carriage were more than 10 soldiers. The group of people faced the setting sun and rushed in the direction of Chang'an, in the courtyard of the cloud mountain. Han Yushi came to the study and saw Li Zixuan reading in the study. She wanted to say something, but stopped. In the end, she could not hold back and said, "Husband, why did you?" Li Zixuan smiled and looked up. He said, "My wife wants to ask why your husband is so heartless and cold-blooded." "Husband, that's not what I meant." Han Yushi quickly shook her head. Li Zixuan pulled his wife to sit on his lap. He hugged Han Yushi's waist from behind and said, "My wife, I'm not interested in other women. I'm even less interested in women for Japan. It's enough for me to have you in my life." Han Yushi was very touched. She turned her head and looked at Li Zixuan with great affection. She said, "My husband, Yushi can die without regrets if you treat me like this. But now that you're a marquis, it's normal for you to have multiple wives. I don't want to be a jealous woman and make you a laughing stock." Today's incident made her realize a very serious problem. Li Zixuan's identity was not just a rich young master. He was the new noble of the Tang Empire and the founder of the country, Marquis. His identity was prominent. Which person with such a prominent identity did not have multiple wives and concubines? So in the end, she helped Su Xiaomu to plead with Li Zixuan. Wasn't that a kind of compromise? Li Zixuan heard this and pinched Han Yushi's beautiful face. He was both angry and amused. Then, he said, "Having multiple wives is just to seek temporary physical pleasure. What your husband values more is to have a heart-to-heart. Like now, when your husband is hungry, even if I don't say it, my wife can make delicious food for your husband in time. When your husband is worried, you can feel my worries and do your best to enlighten me. Your husband is busy with government affairs and has no time to care about other things. My wife, you can help your husband take care of everything in the family and do your best to be filial to your parents. You can solve all your husband's worries. Isn't this kind of tacit understanding from the heart more profound than the physical pleasure? Being half sober, half drunk, and half floating in the air is what your husband wants in life. A couple for life, half awake, half drunk, half alive. Han Yushi was stunned for a moment. For a woman in ancient times, there was no more moving words of love in the world than this. She choked with tears in her eyes and said, "Husband." Li Zishuan patted Han Yushi's back and said with a smile, Okay, my wife, don't be so sentimental. Actually, with your husband's identity, it's not suitable to marry Su I, Xiaomu. Now, Yinhuang College has become a powerful treasure in the eyes of His Majesty. As the Yamacho of Yinhuang College, I keep asking the teachers and students in the college to keep the college a secret, but I marry a foreign woman. How is that appropriate? Han Yushi nodded thoughtfully and said, But husband, even if you don't marry Su I, Xiaomu, you can still take her in as a servant in the mansion. Otherwise, if she is sent back to Japan, how miserable will her fate be? Li Zishuan shook his head and said, My wife, you are too naive. Su I, Xiaomu, is definitely harmful to your husband. Why should I take her in? I can't put myself in danger for a foreign woman who has nothing to do with me. Moreover, there are millions of pitiful people in the world. If I have to save everyone, I can't save all of them. However, Su I, Xiaomu, is not completely useless. If the person who thinks she is useful is willing to save her, she may still have a chance to live. Chang, and city, in a courtyard of Honglu Temple. Pang Feiji came to the courtyard where the Japanese emissaries were staying with Su I, Xiaomu, who was in a coma. General Pang, why are you here? Didn't we just meet? Did Marquis Yong and change his mind? The big brother Wang on the back of the mountain heard the news and came out to welcome them. When he saw Pang Feiji, he immediately smiled. He thought that Li Zishuan was very satisfied with the gift he gave, so he changed his attitude. Pang Feiji said expressionlessly, It was Marquis who sent me to bring back the woman you left behind on Yinshan Mountain. Now that woman is in the carriage behind. Marquis also asked me to pass a message to you. The big brother Wang on the back of the mountain changed his expression and said in a low voice, Please speak. Pang Feiji moved his lips and said, Marquis said that he has no love for foreign women. Please don't waste your time in the future. Being refuted like this, the big brother Wang on the back of the mountain was a little embarrassed. However, when he thought of the huge gap between Japan and the Tang Empire, even if he was angry, he still suppressed it. He cupped his hands and said, Thank you for your reminder, General Pang. This time I thought I was smart. Please pass on my apology to Marquis Yong and Pang Feiji nodded. At this time, the two Japanese warriors under the big brother Wang's command had already boarded the carriage and carried Su Wamu down. The big brother Wang on the back of the mountain looked at the unconscious Su Wamu and suddenly asked in confusion, General Pang, what is the meaning of this? Pang Feiji replied coldly. After your princess found out that Marquis was unwilling to take her in, she would rather die than return to Japan. In order to prevent any accidents on the way, we had to knock her out and send her to you. The big brother Wang on the back of the mountain couldn't help but secretly feel angry that Su Wamu didn't know how to appreciate kindness. She was a disgrace to the Japanese. After sorting out his feelings, he cupped his hands and said to Pang Feiji, Thank you, General Pang. Our princess was rude and made a fool of herself in front of Marquis Yong. Hearing this, Pang Feiji said meaningfully, My Marquis didn't make a fool of you. He just felt that the way you treated the princess was very bad. The big brother Wang on the back of the mountain couldn't help but say, Thank you for your kind reminder, Marquis Yong. However, this is a matter of Japan. Her Majesty will take care of it. I hope so. Pang Feiji could hear the anger in the big brother Wang's words. He didn't give the other party any face. He snorted and left with his men. Your Highness, what should we do with Suwamo? Should I send someone to dress her up and send her to your room tonight? Yoko Ono stood behind the big brother Wang on the back of the mountain and bowed carefully. In his opinion, since Li Zixuan didn't want Su with Xiamu, there was only one outcome for Su with Xiamu. Instead of that, it was better to let his brother enjoy him before he was sent back to Neon. Lock her up and send her back to Japan tomorrow for Her Majesty to deal with. The big brother Wang on the back of the mountain said angrily and went straight into the room. He only had the advanced knowledge and technology of Yanhuang College in his mind. He didn't have time to think about these things. Chapter 1354. In one chapter, Boss, are we not going back? Outside Honglu Temple, Pang Feiji came out with his men. However, they were not in a hurry to leave Chang'an City. Instead, they stayed in and not far from Honglu Temple. His men, Xiongda and Xiong'er, were puzzled. The city gate is about to close. It's too late for us to go back now. Let's stay here tonight. Before Marquis left, he told me that if we can't make it back in time, we'll stay in the city for the night. Pang Feiji said with an unnatural expression. The last words he said to the mountain-back Big Brother King at the Honglu Temple were actually said under Li Zixuan's name. His goal was to make the mountain-back Big Brother King spare Su with Xiamu. This way, he wouldn't have to take the risk tonight. However, from the mountain-back Big Brother's merciless reply, Pang Feiji knew that this matter could not be settled peacefully. When he thought of how Xiamu would be treated when he returned to Neon, his heart ached. Therefore, he decided to stay. Oh, Xiongda and Xiong'er did not doubt him. They nodded and followed Pang Feiji into the inn. As night fell, the people in Chang'an City returned to their homes. There was no one on the streets except for the Marquis patrolling the streets. Creak. And then opposite the Chamberlain of Dependencies, the window of one of the rooms was opened. A black shadow flew down from the window and then sneakily made its way to the Chamberlain of Dependencies across the street. Suddenly, a big hand touched the shoulder of the black shadow from behind. The black shadow was shocked and was about to resist when he heard a voice behind him. Boss, don't fight. It's me, Xiongda. Why are you guys not sleeping in the inn? Why are you out in the middle of the night? The black shadow turned around and looked at the people behind him. He could not help but be surprised. Needless to say, the man in black was Pang Feiji. The people behind him were the guards of the Li family who had entered the city with him. Pang Feiji thought that this trip to Honglu Temple was for his own personal matters, so he did not plan to bring these men. He did not expect Xiongda and the others to follow him. Boss, are you going to Honglu Temple to save the Neon Princess? We'll go with you, Big Xiong said in a low voice. There was a hint of excitement in his words. He thought that the task of rescuing the Wei Nation's princess had been given to him by Li Zixuan. Pang Feiji pursed his lips and said, This matter was not ordered by Marquis. I want to do it myself. It has nothing to do with you. Xiongda, you should go back quickly. Pretend that you didn't see me tonight. Big Xiong was stunned. Obviously, he didn't expect this. After a moment of silence, Big Xiong said, Boss, your business is our business. Besides, that Wei Nation's princess is quite pitiful. If you want to save her, how can we just stand by and watch? Let's go together. When Marquis blames us, we'll be punished together. Yes, let's go together. As soon as Big Xiong finished speaking, the dozen sergeants around him quickly lowered their voices and echoed. When they were in the right Marquis mansion, they had all followed Pang Feiji. Now, even though they had been assigned to the Li family by Li Heir, Pang Feiji had always taken good care of them. Usually, he would treat his subordinates the same way he treated himself. He would never give them any special treatment. This made Big Xiong and the others respect him very much. Therefore, at this moment, although everyone knew that rescuing Su and Xiamu was Pang Feiji's personal action, they all wanted to join in without hesitation. Pang Feiji patted Big Xiong's shoulder and looked at the crowd. For a long time, he was speechless. In the end, he only said 3 words, Good brothers. Hey, boss, listen to what you're saying. We all know how you treat us. Now that you're in trouble, How can we just stand by and watch? Boss, just tell us. What are you going to do tonight? Although there are no guards in Honglu Temple, I think there are a few masters in the Wei Nation's envoy group. Big Xiong chuckled and said. Pang Feiji pondered for a moment and said, I was going to sneak in alone and act according to the situation. Now that you're willing to follow me, it's even easier. Junheng, give me some sleeping gas. A skinny middle-aged man behind Big Xiong opened his mouth and said, Boss, what's sleeping gas? Why would I have sleeping gas? This person was called Lu Junheng. In his early years, he was a gangster in the Jianghu. When the world was in chaos and bandits were everywhere, he had done all kinds of things. However, he was not a bad person and was very loyal. He had joined the army with Pang Feiji. However, because of the Jianghu aura on him, he had not been promoted. However, this guy was happy and content. Pang Feiji laughed and said with a face of disbelief, Ha ha, don't try to hide it from me. If you don't give me the sleeping gas, be careful that I'll find all the golden gun, uncollapsing pill, and celestial desire powder on you, and throw them away. After saying that, he made a move to capture Lu Junheng. Lu Junheng quickly waved his hand and said, Don't. Boss, please be merciful. Don't throw them away. Don't throw them away. These are all treasures. Sleeping gas, all right? Don't you have sleeping gas? I'll give it to you. After saying that, Lu Junheng took out a package from his chest and took out 2 sleeping gas from some bottles and jars in the package. He handed them to Pang Feiji and said, Boss, this is strong. Boss, this thing is very strong. After you light it up, you must stand in the lee of the wind. Otherwise, you will faint. Do I need you to teach me this? Pang Feiji took the sleeping gas and glared at Lu Junheng. He then said, Later, Big Xiong, and Big Xiong will sneak into the courtyard where the Wei Nation's ambassadors are staying. After we find the location where Su Wuxia is being held, I'll light the sleeping gas to knock out the Wei Nation's guards and rescue him. The rest of you will support from the outside. If there's an accident, immediately set the place on fire to attract the attention of the Wei Nation's ambassadors. Yes, boss, everyone replied in a low voice. Pang Feiji thought for a moment and added, Try not to kill anyone and not to make a big deal out of this. After we rescue him, we'll leave. Everyone, cover your faces with black cloth so that no one can recognize us. If we're caught, blame it on me and not Marquis. Remember, this is the Tang Empire. Even if the Wei Nation catches us, they won't dare to do anything to us. However, we can't smear Marquis's name and let the other officials use this to attack Marquis. Yes, where is Su Wuxia being held? At night, Yoko Ono walked out of her room and asked the guard, My lord, Princess Mingda is being held in the woodshed. I'll go take a look at this bitch to prevent her from committing suicide. You stay here and guard. If His Highness comes, send someone to inform me immediately. Yoko Ono nodded and ordered the guard. Then, with her hands behind her back, she calmly walked towards the woodshed. Isn't he just trying to take over Princess Mingda? What a pity. Our Wei Nation's most beautiful woman is being taken advantage of by this old pervert. The guard looked at Yoko Ono's back as he curled his lips and muttered softly. What he didn't notice was that on the roof behind him, there was a black shadow that witnessed everything. Cough, cough. All of you leave. I have something to discuss with Princess Mingda. Without my orders, no one is allowed to enter. Yoko Ono came to the woodshed and ordered the guard at the door. Yes, my lord. Everyone knew that Yoko Ono was favored by the king of Mountain Back. These guards naturally didn't dare to disobey her orders. Yoko Ono laughed sinisterly and pushed the door open. Inside the woodshed, Su Wuxia's hands and feet were tied, and her mouth was gagged with a piece of cloth. This was to prevent her from biting her tongue to commit suicide. Her messy hair was scattered on her beautiful face, and it only served to arouse Yoko Ono's beast desires. Hee. Princess. Oh, right, you're not a princess anymore. Su Wuxia's family has been destroyed, and you're just a deposed princess. TSK. Look at those servants who don't know any better. They actually tied you up so tightly. Let me, Yoko Ono, take care of you. Yoko Ono took off her clothes and looked at Su Wuxia, who was tied up on the floor, with a lewd smile. Before Li Shaogong attacked Wei Nation last year, Su Wuxia's family was one of the top wealthy families in Wei Nation. At that time, Su Wuxia's eldest daughter was known as Wei Nation's most beautiful woman. She attracted thousands of men to chase after her. Although Su Wuxia's second daughter was also very beautiful, she didn't seem that outstanding when compared to her elder sister. However, Su Wuxia couldn't stand the humiliation of Su Wuxia and committed suicide. Su Wuxia naturally became Wei Nation's most beautiful woman. After that, Li Shaogong led the army and destroyed all the men in Su Wuxia's family. Su Wuxia lost the support of her family and could only become the plaything of the rich and powerful in Fanio City. After all, she was the young miss of Su Wuxia's family, and there were still many rich and powerful people who wanted to take her into their palace. Yoko Ono had always been drooling over Su Wuxia's beauty. However, he knew that his status wasn't high enough and could only fantasize about it in private. Just when the rich and powerful in Fanio City were preparing to fight for Su Wuxia, Queen Gu remembered Su Wuxia's help in ascending the throne and summoned Su Wuxia into the palace. However, Big Brother Shanbei was the archenemy of Su Wuxia's family. Although Su Wuxia's family was destroyed, he still didn't want the women in Su Wuxia's family to have a good life. Thus, under his suggestion, Su Wuxia was sent to Tang Dynasty and took on this mission that was worse than death. Woo, 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 woo. Su Wuxia saw Yoko Ono taking off her clothes and revealing her ugly body. She was so frightened that she quickly moved her body back and cried for help. However, her mouth was gagged with a piece of cloth, and she could only make woo-woo-woo sounds. The light from the lanterns and torches shone through the window into the woodshed. Yoko Ono's face turned sinister and twisted. He pointed at the center of his head, where there was a bald patch, and said to Sumo Natsum, "I'm sorry. Hey, do you know how the scar on my head came about? It's all thanks to your Su Wuxia's warriors. Today, I'll let Su Wuxia's second Missy have a taste of my Yoko Ono's prowess." Ha ha ha. Back then, when Li Shaogong was attacked by the Suo family's warriors outside Flying Bird City, Yoko Ono was right beside Li Shaogong. In the end, he was caught in the crossfire. The Suo family's warriors sliced off a large piece of his scalp. From then on, he became a complete bald man. Today's actions gave Yoko Ono a sense of satisfaction from her revenge. After saying that, he pounced towards Su Wuxia naked. Woo! Su Wuxia's eyes widened in fear as she struggled with her bound limbs, wanting to push Yoko Ono away. However, she was only a weak girl. How could she fight against a grown man? On the contrary, the more she struggled, the more excited Yoko Ono became. Hee hee! Shout! Even if you break your throat tonight, no one will come and save you. Yoko Ono laughed sinisterly and wanted to use his hands to tear Su Wuxia's clothes. Bastard! At this moment, the door to the woodshed was pushed open. Before Yoko Ono could react, the back of his neck was attacked by a hard object, and he fainted unwillingly. Shwa shwa! The ropes on Su Wuxia's hands and feet were cut open. The black shadow that knocked Yoko Ono out pulled her up from the ground and said, "Miss Su Wuxia, don't make a sound. I'll bring you away." Mandarin. He actually spoke Mandarin. Su Wuxia's eyes widened. Although there were still tears in her eyes, one could still see the surprise in her eyes. "Did Marquis Yong'an send you to save me?" The black shadow said in a low voice. "No. Cut the crap and come with me." After saying that, the black shadow sealed one of Su Wuxia's acupoints so that she could not make a sound or move. Then, he carried Su Wuxia and walked out of the woodshed. The strange thing was that the guards outside the woodshed were all lying on the ground, as if they had fallen asleep. "Burn it!" The black shadow looked back at the woodshed and ordered. Yes. After a while, the woodshed in the courtyard where the neon ambassadors were staying suddenly burst into flames. The black shadow and Su Wuxia were long gone. "It's on fire! It's on fire! Put out the fire! Wake up and put out the fire!" In the courtyard where the neon ambassadors were staying, there was suddenly a commotion of people putting out the fire. "Boss, where are we going?" On the streets of Chong and City, A group of men in black was running wildly while avoiding the patrolling marquis. Who else could it be other than Pang Feiji and his men? To Yongle Lane, back to the Marquis mansion. That place is safer than the inn. Even if the neon ambassadors dare to search the inn, they would not dare to search the Marquis mansion. Tomorrow morning, we will use the Marquis carriage and take Miss Su Wuxia out of the city. Pang Feiji carried Su Wuxia and said as he ran. They were from the right Marquis guards and knew the pattern and route of the Marquis patrol at night like the back of their hand. That was why they were able to avoid wave after wave of patrolling Marquis. Huh, okay, boss, I'll go in front and help you scout. Xiong laughed loudly and quickly quickened his pace, running forward. Chapter 1355. Your Highness, the fire has been put out. This matter has alarmed the officials of the Tang Empire. The minister of Honlu Temple is waiting for you in the main hall. Honlu Temple, in the courtyard where the One Nation diplomatic mission was staying. Has the cause of the fire been determined? Were there any casualties? The mountain-back Big Brother King asked with a solemn expression. They were staying in the Honlu Temple's post house. Now that such a thing had happened, if there was no evidence to prove that an outsider had set the fire, they would be responsible for the fire. At that time, the compensation for the repair of the house would be a small matter, but losing face as the One Nation's crown prince would be a big deal. Your Highness, it is suspected that someone lit the candlestick in the woodshed. After that, the candlestick collapsed and ignited the firewood in the woodshed, causing the fire. Candlestick? Why would there be a candlestick in the woodshed? And who would light the candlestick in the woodshed at this time? The mountain-back Big Brother King asked curiously. The soldier bowed and said, We found a charred corpse in the woodshed. The face of the corpse could no longer be seen, but we can be sure that the person who was burned to death was a man, and the person who was imprisoned in the woodshed was Princess Mingda. According to the confession of the guards outside the woodshed, Lady Yoko went to the woodshed at around 7 o'clock and sent all the guards away. After that, the woodshed caught fire. Yoko Ono, why did she go to the woodshed? The mountain-back Big Brother King frowned and then thought of something. His expression was ugly as he said, Humph. The evils we bring on ourselves are the hardest to bear. Let's not talk about them for now. You guys go find me, Xiamo. I'll go see the minister of Honlu Temple. You're saying that the One Nation diplomatic mission sent Li Zixuan, a One Nation woman? In the Suite Du Hall, Li Er frowned and asked after listening to Zhao Song's report. Indeed, but in the evening, the Marquis of Yong and had already sent the woman back to the One Nation diplomatic mission. Zhao Song bowed and replied, Oomph. This One Nation envoy is really restless. He really has hidden ambitions. I shouldn't have allowed them to stay in Chang'an for half a year. Li Er snorted coldly. Although he was very satisfied with Li Zixuan's action of sending the neon woman back, he was very angry that the Big Brother King of Mountain Back had so blatantly bribed an important official of the empire with his beauty, and the person he bribed was a key figure like Li Zixuan. Your Majesty, as far as I know, a few months ago, the envoys visited Yanhuang College under the leadership of the King of Jiangxia. At that time, the Marquis of Yong and only allowed them to sit in on the classes of the economics department. They were forbidden from entering the classrooms of the other departments. Therefore, this old servant reckons that the reason why the mountain-back elder brother gave a Marquis Yong and a beauty is probably because he's plotting to obtain knowledge from the other departments of Yanhuang College. Zhao Song tried to analyze the situation. His relationship with Li Zixuan was relatively good. In addition, Li Er was especially concerned about Yanhuang College. Therefore, he deliberately asked people to collect more information in this regard. That was why he could analyze it so clearly and logically now. Li Er glared and said angrily, A small country dares to covet the secrets of the Tang Empire. They really don't know what's good for them. Of course, no one dared to answer Li Er's words. The hall fell into silence for a while. After a while, Li Er's eyebrows relaxed and he smiled. But fortunately, Li Zixuan is also a smart guy. Yesterday, he sent someone to deliver a memorial to me, saying that he wants to strengthen the management of confidentiality in the college. For this purpose, he also formulated an extremely detailed Yanhuang College confidentiality regulation. Although I haven't read 10,000 books in my life, I have at least read 1,000. However, this is the first time I've heard of this confidentiality regulation. In this confidentiality regulation, there are considerations in all aspects. Moreover, the management methods in it are quite novel and reasonable. With a little modification, it can be used in the military camp. This guy's head is full of ideas. Handing Yanhuang College over to him is the right choice. That's because Your Majesty has a good eye for talent. The Marquis of Yong and could rise from merchant's son to his current position because Your Majesty cherishes talent. The Tang Empire will definitely prosper in Your Majesty's hands. Zhao Song was all smiles as he flattered Li Erei, which made Li Erei very happy. At this moment, a chamberlain came in from outside the hall. The chamberlain hurriedly ran to Li Er's side and bowed. Your Majesty, the post house where the Japanese envoys are staying at the Honglu Temple has caught fire. It burned down a woodshed, and a Japanese envoy named Yoko Ono was burned to death. The joy on Li Er's face instantly disappeared. He asked, "Did someone deliberately set the fire?" Your Majesty, according to Marquis Wu's investigation, the fire was caused by a candlestick in the woodshed falling to the ground. As for whether or not someone deliberately set the fire, the people of Marquis government have yet to come to a conclusion. The chamberlain bowed. Li Er frowned and did not say anything. After a while, he suddenly asked, "There was a woman in the Japanese envoys. Was she still in the Japanese envoys after the fire?" The chamberlain suddenly looked troubled. After thinking about it, he cupped his hands and said, "Your Majesty, I don't know, he was just a messenger. How would he know if there was a woman in the Japanese envoys?" Then why don't you send someone to investigate?" Li Er's face darkened as he said coldly, "Yes, Your Majesty." The chamberlain shuddered and quickly left the hall. Zhao Song guessed what Li Er was thinking. He wanted to help Li Zishuan explain, but he felt that it was inappropriate. After hesitating for a long time, he did not say anything in the end. Half an hour later, the chamberlain ran back and bowed to Li Er. "Your Majesty, there is no woman in the Japanese envoys. That's enough. You can leave now." Li Er's face changed. He waved his hand and dismissed the chamberlain. Then Li Er looked at Zhao Song and said, "After tomorrow morning's court, tell Li Zishuan to come to Ganlu Hall to see me." After saying this, Li Er waved his sleeves and left. "Yes, Your Majesty." Zhao Song cupped his hands and answered. He smiled bitterly in his heart. Marquis Yong, and how can you be so muddle-headed in this matter? Sure enough, lust is accompanied by a knife. Yes, he and Li Er both thought that the fire in Honglu Temple tonight was set by Li Zishuan. His purpose was to secretly take the Japanese woman back. "Oh, where's this? You, don't come over. I recognize you. You are the guard of Marquis Yong in the guest room of the Li Mansion in Yongla Lane." Pang Feiji changed out his night clothes and came over to unseal Xiamu's acupoints. Xiamu immediately crossed her arms and moved her body into the bed. She looked at Pang Feiji with a vigilant face and said, Seeing this, Pang Feiji could not help but say, "Miss Xiamu, if I wanted to do something to you, I would have done it long ago. You would not be able to stop me. Since you know that I am Marquis' guard, then you should know that I will not harm you. Otherwise, you would not be here now." Sumi Summer, I had just been violated by Yoko Ono a few minutes ago. Her previous reaction was only a natural reaction after a moment of panic. Now that she heard Pang Feiji's words, she understood the current situation. Therefore, she wasn't as agitated as before. She stood up from the bed and bowed to Pang Feiji. "Thank you, General, for saving me. Xiamu is extremely grateful. I wonder if it was Marquis who asked you to save Xiamu?" After coming to the Tang Empire, she had heard of Li Zishuan's deeds. If she were to use 4 words to describe Li Zishuan, it could only be young and promising. If she were to use 8 words to describe him, it would be young and promising, high position, and power. She knew that if she wanted to change her fate, she could only find a backer that her brother could not afford to offend. and the person she was sent to this time, Lisa Xuan, was a very good backer. For this, she even planned to use the charm techniques she learned from Neon to charm Lisa Xuan. But when she first met Lisa Xuan directly and mercilessly rejected her. She did not use any of the charm techniques she prepared. Now that Pang Feiji had saved her, a glimmer of hope ignited in Xiamu's heart. I already told you just now that Marquis did not send me to save you. I just cannot bear to see you go back to Neon to be humiliated, so I saved you. Marquis's heart is with the country. No matter what, he will not marry a foreign woman. Pang Feiji said expressionlessly. Sumai Xiamu's face turned pale. She bit her lips as tears unconsciously flowed from her eyes. She muttered, "Since the Marquis of Yong and is not willing to take me in, then why did you save me? Even if I came out, I would be caught by them sooner or later." Boo-hoo. It was the first time Pang Feiji saw a girl cry, and such a beautiful girl at that. When Xiamu cried, the arrogance on Brother Chicken's face disappeared. Instead, it was replaced with an uneasy and flustered expression. He said anxiously, "Miss Xiamu, although my Marquis is not willing to take you in, it does not mean that you will be caught by those people. You still have other options." "Other options? What options do I have?" Xiamu raised her head and asked. There was a trace of crying in her voice, and her tear-stained face was really pitiful. Pang Feiji hurriedly shifted his gaze away and said, "Now, you have two choices. The first is that I will take you out of the city after daybreak, and you will go to another place and find another way to survive. The second choice is to follow me, Pang Feiji, back home and live a good life. From today onwards, you are my woman and also a citizen of the Great Tang. Those people will not dare to touch you again." "Ah, you. Xiamu's eyes widened. She never thought that Pang Feiji would want to marry her. She was just about to refuse, but then she remembered that she had no skills. Even if she went to a place where the Neon delegation could not find her, what would she do to make a living? Moreover, she was a beautiful and helpless woman. It was inevitable that she would meet a beast like Yoko Ono in a strange place. Therefore, the first option was definitely not feasible. However, when she thought of the second option, Pang Feiji stood up at the critical moment and saved her from the clutches of the devil. Her heart wavered a little. But I will become a criminal wanted by the Neon. With your status, I will only bring you trouble. You can't protect me." After hesitating for a long time, Xiamu said. After all, in her eyes, Pang Feiji was just a guard. "Hey, Miss Xiamu, don't underestimate me. As long as you become my woman, I, Pang Feiji, swear to God that I will never be bullied like today. If your Japanese envoys want to capture you, they'll have to ask for my permission first. Moreover, I have not married yet. If you become my woman, I promise to treat you well for the rest of your life." Pang Feiji patted his chest and promised. Xiamu looked at Pang Feiji's face, which was not handsome, but full of determination. After a long time, she said softly, "Okay, Xiamu is willing to serve you for the rest of my life." Chapter 1356. 2 in 1 chapter. Your Highness, we can now confirm that all the guards in the courtyard were knocked out by the sleeping gas. Because of this, they didn't notice Princess Mingda's disappearance. But when Princess Mingda was sent back, she didn't have anything on her, let alone sleeping gas. So, I guess that someone must have used the sleeping gas to steal Princess Mingda. But that group of people was very efficient and didn't leave any traces that could prove their identity. Your Highness, should we report this to the Tang Imperial Court and ask them to help us find Princess Mingda? Honglu Temple, Wei Country Embassy. The mountain-backed big brother had just returned from the interrogation of the Honglu Temple when his guard came to report. No. The mountain-backed big brother immediately shook his head and said, "We can't let the Tang Imperial Court know about the existence of Su with Xiamu. Otherwise, they will definitely find out that we sent a woman to Duke Yong. By then, we might be driven back to Wei Country. We don't have to look for Su with Xiamu. Let's just pretend that she's dead. As for this fire, let's just pretend that Yoko Ono set it herself." He wasn't stupid. Once the matter of bribing an important official of Tang was exposed, they wouldn't be able to get away with it. If the bribe was successful, it would be better because Li Zixuan would help them cover it up. But now that the bribe wasn't successful, Li Zixuan had a clear conscience. It was already good enough that he didn't take the initiative to report them. How could he help them cover up their crime? So if he still wanted to stay in Tang Empire safely, he could only swallow this loss in silence. As for Su Xiaomu, who ran away, it didn't matter to him. She was just a woman. Wei country never lacked women. Of course, he also suspected that Li Zixuan sent someone to steal Su Xiaomu, but that was only a suspicion. He didn't have any proof. Moreover, this was Tang Empire, not Wei country. He didn't have any authority to investigate Li Zixuan. Yes, Your Highness. Although the guard didn't know what the mountain-back big brother was thinking, he still obeyed the order. Early the next morning, at the first glimmer of dawn, a carriage drove out of the Marquis mansion in Yongla City and headed straight for the ancient gate. When they arrived at the city gates, the gates had just opened. Pang Feiji rode his horse in front to clear the way. Because the carriage had the symbol of the Marquis mansion, and because the guards at the city gates all recognized Pang Feiji, they didn't check or question him and directly let him pass. In fact, even if the city guards checked the carriage, they would not find anything. This was because the person in the carriage had already changed into the attire of a Tang woman. There was nothing unusual about her. When the time came, Pang Feiji could just make up an identity for her, and she could get away with it. After leaving Chang and City, Pang Feiji deliberately increased his speed. He brought Su Mo, Xiaomu, and his subordinates and rushed towards Cloud Mountain. Huff! Stop! When they were about to reach the Han Manor, Pang Feiji saw two familiar faces in front of him. He quickly reined in his horse and gestured for the people behind him to stop. Then, he jumped off the carriage and walked towards the two people. Brother Lu Feng, Brother Lu Yun. Does Marquis have something to tell me? That's right. The two people were Lu Feng and Lu Yun. Although their appearance made Pang Feiji feel that he had fallen out of favor, Pang Feiji definitely did not have the intention to hate them. After all, they were all working under Li Zixuan. There was no need to treat them like enemies all the time. Moreover, Li Zixuan had already been very lenient towards him regarding Su Mo, Xiaomu. Pang Feiji felt that he owed Li Zixuan a lot. He did not have the face to fight for favor with Lu Feng and Lu Yun. He only wanted to repay Li Zixuan's kindness with all his might in his remaining years. Brother Pang, Marquis said that you can't bring Su Mo, Xiaomu, to Cloud Mountain. He has prepared a house for you in the Han Manor. You can send Su Mo, Xiaomu over there. You will live there in the future. However, try not to let her go out for now. It won't be too late for you to get married after the rumors die down. Lu Feng said with a fist salute. Hearing this, Pang Feiji looked towards the direction of Cloud Mountain with a face full of gratitude. He then saluted Lu Feng and said, "Thank you, Brother Lu, for coming to pass on a message. Feiji will send Xiaomu to the Han Manor now." "Ha! You're welcome. Brother Pang, follow us." Lu Feng laughed heartily and took the initiative to lead the way in front. At this moment, Lu Yun could not help but sigh. "Brother Pang, we are all servants. As a servant, if the master wants you to go east, you can't go west. If the master wants you to catch a dog, you can't catch a chicken. When a master wants you to die for him, you can't hesitate at all. However, this is the first time in my life that I, Lu Yun, have seen a master who is willing to take the risk for the sake of a servant. Such a master, not to mention that I have never seen one before. I have never even heard of one before. Therefore, both of us are very envious of you. We are envious that you can meet such a good master so early." However, you don't have to be envious. Now that we are all working under Marquis, I wonder if His Majesty will transfer us away again in a few days. Lu Yun's sigh seemed to be a little unreasonable and inexplicable. However, as the person involved, Pang Feiji was deeply moved. He was silent for a moment and said with a determined face, "Marquis is indeed an extraordinary person. In the future, my life will belong to Marquis. In this life, as long as I, Pang Feiji, am still breathing, I will not allow anyone to harm Marquis. Haha, Brother Pang is so bold. However, when Brother Pang gets married, the two of us will have to attend the wedding banquet. Lu Feng laughed and said. Pang Feiji shook his head and said, right now, I am not in the mood for a happy occasion. Although I have taken away the Wei Nation's princess this time, I have also caused a lot of trouble for Marquis. This is all because of me. I will take responsibility for what I have done. If I am found out and get blamed by His Majesty, I will definitely not let this matter involve Marquis. At worst, I will go to the Supreme Court and admit my guilt. Marquis. After Pang Feiji settled Su Wa and Xiamu down, he came to the Yinshan villa. Li Zixuan had just finished practicing his swordsmanship. Pang Feiji knelt behind Li Zixuan and cupped his fists. Li Zixuan took the handkerchief from Xiao He and wiped the sweat on his forehead. Then, he said lightly, get up. A man has gold under his knees. If you are really grateful to me, then do your job well in the future. Pang Feiji was silent for a moment. He stood up and said solemnly, from now on, Marquis is my second parent. If Marquis orders me, even if I have to give my life, I will do my best to complete it. Pang Feiji was born in the right Marquis household. It could be said that in the past, Li Zixuan was the most important person in his heart. However, after this incident, Li Zixuan's position in his heart had directly surpassed Li Er's. Now, if Li Zixuan were to raise the flag of rebellion, Pang Feiji would definitely follow him without hesitation. Yes, Li Zixuan nodded. This time, in order to help Pang Feiji and Su Xiamu, he would definitely bear a certain amount of risk. If it were other superiors, they would definitely not do this for their subordinates. However, Li Zixuan's soul was that of a modern person. The concept of superior and inferior was not deeply engraved in his bones. Pang Feiji had been with him for so long. He treated Pang Feiji as a friend, not a servant who could be ordered around by others. On the other hand, he did sympathize with Su Xiamu's situation. However, even if he sympathized because of his identity, he could not personally help her. Since Pang Feiji had taken a fancy to Su Xiamu, he might as well help them. He could use the former princess of the Wei Nation to be his subordinate's wife. This was also something that would give him face, wasn't it? Have you settled everything on your side? Reporting to the Marquis, everything has been settled. Pang Feiji quickly replied. Li Zixuan asked again, do you have any relatives at home? Speaking of which, as a superior, he was not considered competent. He did not even know the basic family situation of his employee. Pang Feiji replied, Marquis, I still have an old mother at home. She lives in Yongyang Lane. I plan to take some time to bring her to the Han family manor. In the future, she will settle down in the Han family manor. Yes. That's not bad. Li Zixuan nodded. Just as he was about to say something, he heard Xiao He beside him remind him softly, Young master, head steward Zhao from the palace is here. Pang Feiji's expression changed. He turned around and saw Zhao Song and a group of people walking towards them from outside the courtyard. He suddenly had an ominous feeling in his heart. Marquis, if the Emperor finds out about what happened last night, I will take responsibility for what I did. I am willing to go to the Supreme Court to plead guilty. Pang Feiji hurriedly whispered to Li Zixuan. Li Zixuan did not panic. He smiled and said calmly, Don't be anxious. First of all, Big Brother Shanbei will definitely not report to the authorities because of Su Xiamu's disappearance. This is because his crime of secretly bribing the officials will be exposed. If the people do not report, the officials will not investigate. I guess the Emperor might have misunderstood that I was greedy for Miss Xiamu's beauty and sent people to kidnap her. That is why he asked Zhao Song to summon me to the palace. In fact, when Li Zixuan made the decision to let Pang Feiji go to Honlu Temple to steal Xiamu, Li Zixuan had already considered the possible consequences. Among them, the biggest possibility was that Big Brother Shanbei himself would suffer this loss. Su Xiamu was just an abandoned pawn. Big Brother Shanbei would not give up the opportunity to continue hiding in the Tang Empire because of her. Marquis, if His Majesty really blames me for this, you must push this subordinate out. After all, this happened because of me. Even if Feiji dies, I cannot implicate Marquis. After a moment of silence, Pang Feiji bowed and said. Li Zixuan did not reply, because Zhao Song had already walked to the entrance of the courtyard. He smiled and went up to greet him, clasping his hands. Ha! Head Steward Zhao, what wind blew you here? Servants, quickly prepare some tea. Zhao Song hurriedly waved his hands. I owe my Marquis. Look at the situation now, and you still have the mood to drink tea. Quickly, come with me to the palace. The Emperor has summoned you to the palace. Li Zixuan's expression became serious, and he said crisply, All right, please wait for a moment, Butler Zhao. Let me change my clothes, then I will follow you to the palace. After a while, Li Zixuan changed into his court attire, rode on Big White, and left Yin Mountain with Zhao Song. On the way, Zhao Song saw that there was no one around, so he deliberately slowed down the speed of his horse. He whispered to Li Zixuan, Marquis, let me say something that I shouldn't say. With your current status, what kind of girl can't you marry? Why do you have to marry a Japanese girl and make the Emperor unhappy? In my opinion, you should release the Japanese girl that you kidnapped last night as soon as possible. As the Emperor's trusted aide, the fact that Zhao Song could speak to this extent proved that he really did not treat Li Zixuan as an outsider. Li Zixuan heard the sincerity in Zhao Song's words, so he treated him with sincerity. Steward Zhao, since you put it this way, then I won't hide it anymore. To be honest, yesterday afternoon, the big brother on a mountain back sent a Japanese girl. After I heard about it, I immediately sent the Japanese girl back. Since then, there's been no Japanese girl on Yun Mountain, and I, Li Zixuan, will not have anything to do with any foreign girl, whether it is in the past, present, or future, let alone marry a Japanese girl. Hearing Li Zixuan's solemn vow, Zhao Song did not doubt him and chose to believe him. He breathed a sigh of relief and smiled. With your words, Marquis, then I can rest assured. After a quarter of an hour, Li Zixuan arrived at the palace. At this time, Li Er had not finished the morning assembly, so he waited quietly alone in the Gamlo Hall. After waiting for about half an hour, there was finally a sound of footsteps outside the hall. Li Zixuan straightened his clothes. When Li Er came in, he quickly bowed and saluted. Your Majesty, you allowed your subordinates to set fire to the Honglu Temple and tried to marry a Japanese girl in private. Do you still have me, the Emperor, in your eyes? Li Er's cold and ruthless voice came from above. It was obvious that Li Er was very angry. Of course, he was angry because Li Zixuan wanted to marry a neon woman, not because the post house where the neon people lived had been burned down. He didn't care about the neon people's lives at all. What he cared about was that after Li Zixuan married a neon woman, he might leak his magical engineering knowledge to the neon people. Through the conversation with Zhao Song on the way here, Li Zixuan had already understood Li Er's anger in advance. At this moment, he did not beat around the bush and directly explained. Your Majesty, why do you say that? Japan is an inferior country. As a subject of the Tang Empire, how can I marry a girl from an inferior country? Not only now, but also in the future. I dare to point to the heavens and swear. Hearing this, Li Er's expression became slightly better. In the eyes of the Tang Empire, Japan was indeed an inferior country. Not only did the Tang Empire think so, but even the Japanese themselves thought so. Therefore, the Japanese often borrowed seeds from the Tang Empire's merchants who passed by on the sea. Then the arson and kidnapping incident last night at the Honglu Temple really had nothing to do with you? Although Li Er felt a little in his heart, he was still somewhat puzzled. He did not believe that last night's incident had nothing to do with Li Zixuan. Your Majesty, of course this incident had something to do with me. Li Zixuan's words almost made old Li go berserk. Then he heard Li Zixuan continue, Don't worry. The big brother king of the mountain back is coveting the knowledge of the Yanhuang Academy. I have long noticed this. This time, this bastard is even more outrageous. He wants to use his beauty to bribe me. If I don't teach him a lesson, Won't he forget himself? So, after I sent someone to send the woman back yesterday, I asked someone to snatch her back. Then, I directly rewarded the Wenatian woman to a servant. The Wenatians' diplomatic mission suffered a double loss. It can be considered a lesson to them. Chapter 1357. In the Ganlu Palace. When the heir saw Lisa Xuan say these words so confidently, he was really angry. His face was as cold as frost as he said, "Humph! You burned down the Honglu post house, and you still dare to talk to me like this? Do you still have any respect for the law?" However, although he looked very angry, there was only anger in his words, not coldness. Lisa Xuan had made it very clear that the kidnapping of the Neon woman was just to teach the Neon delegation a lesson and to reward the woman to his subordinates. As long as Lisa Xuan didn't marry the Neon woman, it was enough. According to the previous plan, once Lisa Xuan wanted to marry the Neon woman, even if the heir was reluctant, he would imprison Lisa Xuan or kill him directly. After all, the engineering knowledge in Lisa Xuan's head was too terrifying. Once it spread to other countries, it would bring immeasurable losses to the Tang Empire. As the supreme ruler of the Tang Empire, Li Er would never allow this to happen. There were some things that he couldn't have, and he couldn't let other countries have either. Now that the truth was out, Li Er naturally didn't have to worry about whether to kill Lisa Xuan or not. Lisa Xuan smiled bitterly and said, "Your Majesty, I only asked my subordinates to steal the woman, but I didn't ask them to set the house on fire. I think the fire was accidentally set by the Neon people, and it has nothing to do with me." Since Big Brother Shanbei did not report the disappearance of Xiamu to the authorities, then he would definitely take responsibility for the fire at the post house. Therefore, Lisa Xuan simply pushed the boat with the current and threw the blame to Big Brother Shanbei. When Li Er heard this, he was instantly speechless. During the morning court session, the current minister of the Honglu Temple reported to him the investigation of the burning of the Neon delegation's post house last night. The Neon people admitted that they had accidentally burned down the woodshed and were willing to pay for the loss of the post house. Of course, Li Er was skeptical about the Japanese's statement, so he just asked Lisa Xuan to see if he could get a different answer from Lisa Xuan. He didn't expect the result to be the same. Li Er said crossly, "Humph! Even if the fire was not set by your people, as a marquis, you actually sent people to sneak into the Honglu Temple to kidnap people. You're breaking the law knowingly. I see that you're getting bolder and bolder." Lisa Xuan knew that he was in the wrong, and he also understood that Li Er was not really angry. So he said, "Your Majesty, I was indeed thoughtless this time. At that time, I only wanted to teach the Neon delegation a lesson, but I forgot my identity and acted a little extreme. Please punish me, Your Majesty." This was retreating in order to advance. Anyway, Oli didn't care about the lives of the Neon people at all. Even if he admitted his mistake, he wouldn't be punished much. Li Er raised his eyebrows and asked, "Did you really give that Neon woman to a servant?" It turned out that Oli was still worried. He was afraid that Lisa Xuan would have something to do with the Neon people. Lisa Xuan hurriedly promised, "Your Majesty, this is absolutely true. I plan to let that Neon woman marry my subordinate as soon as this matter is over. And Your Majesty, you may not know that the Neon woman has a special identity. She is the daughter of the Suo family, a top family in Neon. However, the Suo family was destroyed last year, and the Neon Crown Prince suppressed the old, weak, women, and children of the Suo family. Therefore, that Neon woman was sent to the Tang Empire as a pawn to bribe officials. Now that woman has a deep hatred for the Neon Empress and the Neon Crown Prince. When the Tang Empire's army attacks Neon in the future, she can lead the way for us." Li Er nodded thoughtfully, and then felt that something was wrong. He frowned and said, "Neon is a barren land overseas. I have nothing to do. Why would I send troops to attack it?" Finally, the topic was changed. Lisa Xuan breathed a sigh of relief and said with a smile, "Your Majesty, you are wrong. Neon is rich in copper and silver mines. If we can conquer Neon, the Tang Empire will not lack silver and copper in the future." Hearing this, Li Er couldn't help but be moved. He frowned and asked, "How do you know that Neon is rich in copper and silver mines?" Li Zixuan's face froze. After a moment, he hurriedly said, "Your Majesty, my master went to Neon before he died and said that Neon was full of copper and silver. Last year, Commander Princegian also went to Neon, so he must know about this. On the other hand, Neon sent so much silver and copper to the Tang Empire last year and this year, which is enough to prove that the land is rich in silver and copper." Duping Li Er into becoming interested in Neon. After the Turks and Tufan were destroyed, the Tang Empire would be able to attack Neon. This way, Li Er wouldn't turn his attention to Goguryeo too early. To be honest, Goguryeo was a tough nut to crack. The four emperors of the Sui and Tang dynasties had all sent troops to attack Goguryeo, and countless Han Chinese soldiers had died in Goguryeo. Many historians believe that Li Shimon's 3 campaigns against Goguryeo was a big failure in his life. He had made the same mistake as Emperor Yang of the Sui dynasty. Therefore, using Neon as a training ground for Li Er was a very good choice. If the mountain-backed big brother knew about Li Zixuan's sinister intentions, he would probably send out all the ninjas and assassins in Neon to kill Li Zixuan. Sure enough, old Li's expression changed. He pondered for a moment and said, "But now, the Tang Empire has started to promote the use of paper Tang Yuan. The demand for copper is not as big as before." Li Zixuan hurriedly said, "Your Majesty, copper is not only used for coins. There are many things that require copper in engineering. For example, the telegraph machine requires a lot of copper because copper conducts electricity better than iron. In the future, there will be more and more places that require copper." The corner of Li Er's mouth twitched. Only now did he know that Li Zixuan's telegraph machine required a lot of copper. It was really extravagant. This was mainly because in the eyes of the ancient people, copper basically meant money. However, for something like the telegraph machine, no matter how expensive it was, the more the better. Therefore, Li Er thought for a moment and said, forget it. We will remember this matter for now. You brat, go back and reflect on yourself. The next time you do something like this, we will teach you a lesson." Li Zixuan knew that he had already planted a seed in Li Er's heart. He hurriedly cupped his hands and replied, "Yes, Your Majesty, I will reflect on myself in the coming days." After a moment of silence, Li Er said, "Since the envoys are so restless and dare to blatantly bribe the courtiers, we will order all of them to go back in a few days." Li Zixuan hesitated and said, "Your Majesty, now that the woman has been taken away by my men, there is no evidence for the bribery. Wo is now a vassal state of the Tang Empire. Your Majesty previously agreed to let them stay in Chang and city for half a year. If you change your mind this time, I think the courtiers will not agree." Li Er pondered for a moment and nodded. "What you said is not without reason. In that case, let them stay for a few more days. However, you have to prevent the people from going to Yanhuang College to steal the technology related to the telegraph machine, the fairy lamp, and the telescope. The Yanhuang College confidentiality regulations you formulated this time is very good. In the future, Yanhuang College will implement a comprehensive confidentiality management according to the regulations you listed in it. Through the previous rebellion, Li Er saw the role of the telegraph machine, the fairy lamp, and the telescope in war. At the same time, he also realized that these technologies should be kept strictly confidential. Otherwise, it would be the Tang Empire's turn to have a headache if other countries also had them. Li Zixuan was naturally very happy that Li Er could realize this. He cupped his hands and said, Your Majesty, Your Majesty, Your Majesty, please rest assured that I will not let the small foreign countries covet the magical weapons of the Tang Empire. Good. With your words, I am relieved. Li Er nodded. Suddenly, he turned his gaze to Li Zixuan and asked, I also heard that you have a 100 trump card project in the college. What is the meaning of this? Come and tell me. It had to be said that Li Er was quite concerned about Yanhuang College. At this moment, He had probably forgotten that he had called Li Zishuan over to denounce him. Your Majesty, this trump card project is a project that I specially set up to encourage the students to create some magical weapons that will benefit the world. Hearing Li Er mention the trump cards project, Li Zishuan explained in detail the contents of the project that he had introduced to the students and teachers of the college. Your Majesty intends to start the first trump cards project, which is the Bar River hydropower station. Currently, the Bar River Dam is only the first step. After the dam is completed, Your Majesty will use the dam as the foundation to build a hydropower station and usher in the era of electricity for the Tang Empire. At the end, Li Zishuan revealed his first trump cards project. Li Er had heard Li Zishuan talk about the Bar River Dam before, so he was not very surprised. However, he was very interested in the concept of the trump cards project that Li Zishuan proposed. After thinking for a moment, Li Er opened his mouth and said, "This 100 trump cards project can't only be funded by the college alone. The Imperial Court will also transfer a portion of money to support it every year. In addition, as long as the participants make outstanding contributions, I will not be stingy with money and official rewards." This basically raised the trump cards project to the level of a country. Li Zishuan was naturally very happy. He cupped his hands and said, "Your Majesty, I thank you in advance on behalf of those students for your reward." Li Er said happily, "Kid, you're getting more and more glib-tongued. When the college has really made some great achievements, it won't be too late for you to thank me." All right. Since you have asked what you wanted to ask, you can leave." "Yes, Your Majesty, I will leave." Li Zishuan cupped his hands in acknowledgement and slowly left the sweet dew hall. After leaving the palace, he couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief and said, "Phew, this can be considered a blessing in disguise, right?" He had been angrily called into the palace by Li Er, but not only had he not been punished, but the trump card project had also received old Li's full support. Wasn't this a blessing in disguise? Chapter 1358. Bastard. I summoned him to the palace to punish him. But why did I let him leave the palace safely? After Li Zishuan left, Li Er came back to his senses after a long while. He was a little angry and helpless. Zhao Song, who was beside him, almost laughed out loud. He thought to himself, in the entire Tang Empire, only one official like Li Zishuan could make Li Er so mad. "Marquis, are you okay?" Pang Feiji asked worriedly as he came back to Yinshan. Li Zishuan had been in the palace for so long that he was even prepared to go to the Supreme Court to plead guilty. Fortunately, Li Zishuan had finally returned. If something had happened to me, would I have been able to come back safely? His Majesty only admonished me. Li Zishuan smiled with a relaxed face and said as he walked, "One nation is just a small country. Who in the Imperial Court would care about losing a person? In a month, you will marry that Xiamu of the Sui Empire. When the time comes, I will also go to the wedding." What he said was true. One nation was weak at the moment. Whether it was the Tang Empire, the Qin, Han, the Three Kingdoms, or the Sui Empire, none of them took One nation seriously. To put it bluntly, in the hearts of the Tang Empire's officials, One nation status was even lower than those small Nanyang countries. This was because the Department of Commerce had tasted great benefits from trading with those small Nanyang countries last year. I will never forget Marquis's kindness. From now on, I am willing to go through water and tread on fire for Marquis. Although Li Zishuan made it sound easy, Pang Feiji could imagine the danger involved in Li Zishuan's visit to the palace. As a lord, it was definitely unprecedented for him to do this for his subordinate. Therefore, Pang Feiji was very touched and cupped his fists. Li Zishuan turned around and looked at Pang Feiji. He said seriously, "You don't have to thank me, but I have to say this first. Since my Xiamu is married to you, she will be a citizen of the Tang Empire. Her heart must be with the Tang Empire. If I find that she is still thinking about Wa and betraying the country, then don't blame me for being ruthless and killing you too." This was a forewarning for Pang Feiji. He had planted a seed in Li Er's heart today, and it was very likely that the Tang Empire would attack Japan in the future. At that time, Su Wuxiao's position would be a problem. Pang Feiji's expression became serious. He cupped his fists and said, Marquis, Feiji has not reached the point of being blinded by lust. I can still distinguish between right and wrong. When the time comes, I will do it myself, even without Marquis's help. The national honor of the Tang Empire was not to be violated. Moreover, in Pang Feiji's mind, when it came to marriage, a woman should follow the chicken or dog. Since Su Wuxiao was married to him, she naturally had to consider the problem from his point of view. Yes, it's good that you know. But I hope that kind of thing will never happen. She now has a deep hatred for Hua. You'd better let her acknowledge the Tang Empire from the bottom of her heart and think that she is a citizen of the Tang Empire. Haha, this depends on your ability, Li Zixuan said with a smile. Yes, Marquis. Pang Feiji cupped his fists and said yes. Li Zixuan waved his hand and motioned for him to leave. At this moment, Han Yushi had already come out to welcome him. Husband, you're back? Did His Majesty make things difficult for you? After lunch, Li Zixuan came to the academy. Taking advantage of the students' lunch break, he gathered all the teachers of the academy and held a meeting on confidentiality. These days, everyone should have read the Yinhuang College confidentiality regulations. Then, I announced that from today onwards, the academy will officially set up a confidentiality work leading group. I will be the leader, and Mr. Wenji will be the deputy leader. Within the academy, all the books, materials, manuscripts, and drawings will be classified according to their importance. Some laboratories and reference rooms in the academy also had to be classified as secret places based on their importance. Moreover, the internal personnel of the academy will also be classified according to the nature and importance of their work. From the lowest to the highest, they will be classified as ordinary personnel, important personnel, and core personnel. These classified carriers, places, and personnel must be completed within a week, and all of them must be recorded. In the future, they must be managed according to the Yinhuang College confidentiality regulations. Confidentiality is no small matter. Although these confidentiality regulations are complicated and there will be many difficulties in implementing them, we must do things according to the regulations because some of the secrets in Yinhuang College are not only the Academy's secrets, but also the secrets of the entire Tang Empire. His Majesty is also very concerned about the confidentiality of our Academy. Therefore, the leaders of the various academic departments must mobilize the teachers of their respective departments to take action and not let the Yinhuang Academy's confidentiality ordinance become a piece of paper. Understand? At the meeting, Li Zixuan emphasized the importance of the Academy's confidentiality management and urged all the teachers of the various departments to carry out the work as soon as possible. Yes, Yamacho. All the teachers in the meeting room hurriedly cupped their hands in obeisance. Li Zixuan continued, Recently, I will be in the Academy to urge these matters to be carried out faster. In addition, regarding the 100 Trump Cards project of the Academy, this project has received high praise from His Majesty. Every year, the Imperial Court will transfer a portion of the funds to support the Academy's Trump Cards project. This is good news for us. Therefore, all the departments must begin to collect the practical and useful projects proposed by the students and summarize them to me. Then, the Academy will discuss which projects can be included in the 100 Trump Card project. This is a long-term and very meaningful task, so please keep in mind. Yes, Yamacho. When they heard Li Zixuan say that the Imperial Court would vigorously support the Academy's Trump Cards project, the teachers present couldn't help but cheer. After all, this meant that they would be working for the Imperial Court in the future. Li Zixuan nodded and continued. In addition to collecting the good ideas proposed by the students, you can also propose or participate in some of the Trump Cards projects. Not only will you be rewarded by the Academy, but you will also have a lot of bonus points in the future professional title evaluation. In addition, I announced the first Trump Card project of the Academy, the Ba River Hydropower Project. At present, the dam of the Ba River is steadily being built. After the dam is completed, a generator will be installed on the dam. This is a very good opportunity for the teachers of the physics department of Yinhuang College to gain experience. After all, you have all learned about electricity from textbooks and have never used in practice. Therefore, this time, the Ba River Hydropower Project, the students and teachers of the physics department of the academy must try their best to participate in it. Yamacho is right. The teachers and students of the academy must seize this opportunity to practice it. And Mo Huai nodded in agreement. The other teachers of the academy also nodded thoughtfully. To put it bluntly, among the 5 departments of Yanhuang College, except for the economics department, the knowledge taught in the other 4 departments was forcibly instilled by Lisa Xuan. There were many things that they didn't have the time or the conditions to verify in person. Therefore, the future of Yanhuang College was very long. Marquis, the owner of the Misty Rain Villa in Jiangnan, Zheng Yinhong, requests to see you. After a busy afternoon in the academy, Lisa Xuan returned to the courtyard in the evening. Pang Feiji came to report to him. Lisa Xuan raised his eyebrows and said in surprise, Zheng Yinhong? Zheng Yinhong, the behind-the-scenes boss of the Wind and Thunder team? Oh, right. If this Marquis remembers correctly, he was the one who bought the first great celestial mirror, right? When the Immortal Mirror was first launched last year, it swept the entire Chong and city. In order to buy a mortal mirror to please girls, Xiao Yu's grandson even asked Xiao Yu to personally write a letter to Lisa Xuan to open a back door for him. At that time, the Strange Taste Pavilion mainly sold small immortal mirrors, but it would launch an immortal mirror that was as tall as a person from time to time. The price was 8,888 strings of coins, which was not affordable for ordinary people. At that time, the first 2 immortal mirrors were launched. One was bought by Chao Wendong, and the other was bought by Zheng Yinhong. Of course, what Lisa Xuan was most interested in was Zheng Yinhong's other identity, the boss behind the scenes of the Wind and Thunder team. It was already April. In the ranking competition in Lantian County, the Wind and Thunder team had advanced to the knockout round with the highest points in Group A, and their strength could be said to be superior to all other heroes. Next, they would compete for the Tang Empire's League 1 team in the knockout round. However, in Lisa Xuan's opinion, the Wind and Thunder team would definitely win the title of League 1 team. Yes, Marquis, the boss of the Wind and Thunder team, Zheng Yinhong. He said that he has admired you for a long time, and specially came to visit you today. Pang Feiji bowed and said, invite him to the main hall and let someone serve him tea. As the saying goes, one does not visit a temple without a cause. Lisa Xuan wanted to see what Zheng Yinhong was here for today. Yes, Pang Feiji took the order and left. After a while, Zheng Yinhong was brought to the main hall. Pang Feiji asked him to sit there for a while. As soon as Zheng Yinhong entered the house, he was shocked by the luxurious, bright, and modern decor of the house. Hee, it's just a humble house. Please don't laugh at it. At this moment, Lisa Xuan came out of the study and saw Zheng Yinhong looking at the decor in the house in shock. He laughed and said, Zheng Yinhong came back to his senses and quickly said, Marquis, you must be joking. If this is still a humble house, there won't be any luxurious houses in the world. In the past, this Zheng's Misty Rain Villa prided itself on its grandeur and grandeur. But compared to the Marquis's villa and the Yanhuang Academy on the Cloud Mountain, it's just a rural farm. Lisa Xuan laughed and said, You're exaggerating, Villa Master Zheng. This Cloud Mountain villa is just a little new in style, but it's not grand and magnificent. You're too modest, Marquis. Zheng Yinhong cupped his hands and suddenly got up and said, I've admired Marquis for a long time. I hope Marquis won't blame me for my sudden visit. Lisa Xuan waved his hand and said, It's okay. I've heard of Villa Master Zheng's reputation. Misty Rain Villa has monopolized the grain, porcelain, and silk business in the entire Jiangnan circuit. Villa Master Zheng is really good at making money. Zheng Yinhong quickly said, Marquis, you flatter me. Compared to Marquis, my ability is like a firefly competing with the sun and moon. Oh, right, I brought some specialties from Jiangnan Circuit for Marquis. I hope Marquis will kindly accept it. Qianjun, quickly take it out. At this point, Zheng Yinhong instructed the young man behind him. Seeing Lisa Xuan looking at the young man behind him, Zheng Yinhong quickly introduced him. Oh, Marquis, this is my son. He's been ignorant since he was young, but his character is not bad. This time, I brought the Wind and Thunder team to Chang and to participate in the competition, so I brought him with me to let him broaden his horizons. Qianjun, why don't you quickly greet Marquis? Zheng Qianjun, who was holding a delicate wooden box, quickly bowed to Li Zishuan and said, Greetings, Marquis. Li Zishuan, who was the son of a rich businessman, became a marquis within a year. He was Zheng Qianjun's idol. Zheng Qianjun, who was also the son of a rich businessman, dreamed more than once that he could be like Li Zishuan and become a marquis and prime minister one day. Zheng Qianjun? Hee, there's no need to be so polite. When Li Zishuan heard the young man's name, he suddenly remembered that a person named Zheng Qianjun had tipped Celestial Bane 5,000 Tang yuan a while ago. In that case, the father and son in front of him were Li Zishuan's regular customers. Li Zishuan felt that it was quite interesting. Thank you, Marquis. Zheng Qianjun straightened his body, then raised the wooden box in his hand and said to Li Zishuan, Marquis, this is the fresh spring tea that my father sent from Jiangnan 800 miles away from Hangzhou to deliver for you. This spring tea was personally picked from the back mountain of Lingyin Temple. It's fresh and tender and is my father's favorite. Please accept it, Marquis. Tea leaves. The father and son of the Zheng family were here to deliver tea leaves. When Pang Feiji saw this, he could not help but mourn for the father and son of the Zheng family. That was because almost everyone around Li Zishuan knew that Li Zishuan did not like to drink tea. Usually, even if there were guests, Li Zishuan would rather drink plain water than tea. Therefore, Pang Feiji felt that the father and son of the Zheng family had failed in their gift delivery this time. Zheng Yinhong continued Zheng Qianjun's words. I've heard people say that Marquis does not like to drink tea. He usually only drinks water. However, I feel that it's not that Marquis doesn't like to drink tea. It's just that he hasn't come across tea leaves that suit his taste. In the past, my situation was similar to that of Marquis. However, ever since I tasted the tea leaves from the back mountain of the Lingyin Temple, I can't live without them. Therefore, I specially brought a batch of tea leaves to give to Marquis. Oh, because I don't like to drink tea leaves that have been dried and crushed. I like to drink tea leaves that have just been picked. Therefore, the tea leaves that I've brought to Marquis this time are also freshly picked. If Marquis thinks that it's inappropriate, he can ask the servants to dry them. Pang Feiji was a little confused. Since Zheng Yinhong knew that Li Zishuan did not like to drink tea, why did he still bring tea to him? Wasn't he looking for trouble? Unexpectedly, Li Zishuan took the wooden box from Zheng Qianjun's hand with a happy face and said with a smile, Thank you for coming here. Hangzhou spring tea? That's great. The water quality in Hangzhou is excellent. The spring tea produced by the spring rain must be of the highest quality. Heights Lord Zheng is right. The reason why I don't like to drink tea is that I haven't come across tea leaves that suit my taste. I must taste the spring tea that Heights Lord Zheng has brought to me. I just don't know if Heights Lord Zheng has any more Hangzhou spring tea leaves. Freshly picked Hangzhou spring tea leaves. Li Zishuan was so happy that he couldn't close his mouth. Finally, he didn't have to drink tasteless water anymore. It was just that the tea leaves that old Zheng gave him were a little too little. Yes. If Marquis likes it, I'll send a few more boxes to Marquis later. Zheng Yinhong was a little confused at first, but then he replied excitedly. Chapter 1359. 2. In one chapter, how did the people of the Tang Dynasty drink tea? First, the tea leaves were ground into powder, then the water was boiled. After the first boiling, salt was added. After the second boiling, the ground tea could be poured in and boiled. After the third boiling, the tea was divided into teacups. That was not enough. According to personal taste, scallions, ginger, dates, orange peel, dogwood, mint, and other things could be added. Spices and other things could also be added. The taste was simply too sour. In any case, after Li Zishuan tasted it once, he could not wait to avoid all the teas of this era. Because how could this be tea? It tasted worse than Chinese medicine. In fact, China's ancient tea ceremony probably started in the Tang Dynasty and flourished in the Song Dynasty. After the invasion of the grassland tribes in the Yuan Dynasty, China's tea ceremony gradually declined. In the Ming Dynasty, it showed a different scene. Generally speaking, the Tang Dynasty boiled tea, the Song Dynasty boiled tea, and the Song Dynasty boiled tea. Whether it was boiling tea or boiling tea, people used crushed tea leaves as the raw material. However, this method was completely changed in the Ming Dynasty. According to legend, Zhu Yuanzhang, the founder of the Ming Dynasty, once visited the common people and saw that they were laboriously making dragon phoenix tea as a tribute to the palace. It was very difficult. If there was a slight flaw, they had to make it again. It wasted a lot of time and a lot of good materials. Therefore, in the 24th year of the Ming Dynasty, Zhu Yuanzhang issued an edict to abolish dragon phoenix tea and change it to dragon phoenix tea, loose tea. From then on, Tang Dynasty boiled tea and Song Dynasty boiled tea. When Li Zishuan first transmigrated, he regretted that he did not transmigrate to the Ming Dynasty. However, after thinking about it, he felt relieved, since the Tang Dynasty was popular to boil tea leaves and not stir-fry tea. Then he would lead the trend. However, since the beginning of spring this year, too many things had happened. Li Zishuan did not have time to search for good spring tea leaves to stir-fry. In the end, Zheng Yinhong took the initiative to send a batch of good, fresh, and uncrushed spring tea leaves from Hangzhou. How could he waste it? Moreover, this was spring tea from the Lingyin Temple. The Lingyin Temple, also known as the Yunlin Temple, was built in the first year of the Eastern Jin Dynasty. In the Tang Dynasty, the famous tea sage Lu Yu wrote the world's first monograph on tea, the classic of tea. There is a record of the tea produced by the Lingyin Temple in Hangzhou. This tea was actually the predecessor of the West Lake Longjing tea. The spring tea that Zheng Yinhong brought could also be called the Dragon Well tea after the rain. Therefore, when Li Zishuan heard that the tea leaves in the wooden box were produced in the Lingyin Temple in Hangzhou, it was not surprising that he became so excited. This marquis has always heard that Hangzhou is a beautiful place. The north peak of the Hidden Spirit Temple is even more beautiful, with clear hills and clear waters. The tea leaves produced in that place must taste very good. To tell you the truth, this marquis doesn't like to crush the tea leaves before drinking them. This is because it deviates from the original taste of the tea leaves. Brewing the tea leaves in boiling water will allow one to appreciate the true taste of a tea. Li Zishuan let Pang Feiji take the tea leaves, then looked at Zheng Yinhong and said with a face full of praise, "Marquis is really wise." I deeply agree. When I was in Jiangnan, I heard that Marquis was a master of both literature and martial arts. I didn't expect that Marquis would have such a unique understanding of tea. Marquis is really my soulmate. Zheng Yinhong secretly let out a sigh of relief, then said with a face full of joy. Li Zishuan was also in a good mood after receiving the first-rate Dragon Well tea. He laughed and said, "Haha." This marquis also regretted that we didn't meet earlier. When this marquis has finished brewing this spring tea after the rain, I will definitely invite Manor Master Zheng to Yinshan to taste it. I hope Manor Master Zheng will be free then. It is my fortune to be invited by Marquis. When the time comes, I will definitely be there on time. What's more, although this Marquis was far away in Jiangnan, I know that Marquis is a master of fine food and wine. This Hangzhou spring tea after the rain will definitely be even more fragrant after going through Marquis hands. When the time comes, I will be in for a treat. Zheng Yinhong laughed and cupped his hands, then looked at the sky outside the window. He stood up and said, "It's getting late, so I won't disturb Marquis any longer. Goodbye." Li Zishuan raised his eyebrows imperceptibly. He secretly thought that this Zheng Yinhong was a little interesting. Usually, people who came to give gifts would have a request after giving them. However, this old man directly left after giving the gift, as if he was really just here to visit him. How interesting. As a mature adult, Li Zishuan naturally wouldn't be so stupid to think that Zheng Yinhong was just admiring his reputation and had simply come to see him. However, Since Zhang Yinhong didn't say anything, Li Zixuan didn't need to take the initiative to ask. In any case, he had only received a box of tea leaves. If he had any excessive requests in the future, he could just refuse. But then again, he saw that this old man, surnamed Zheng, wasn't the kind of person who didn't know how to adapt to circumstances. He probably wouldn't make any excessive requests. In that case, this marquis won't keep Manor Master Zheng. Take care. Li Zixuan stood up and cupped his hands to send the guest off. Marquis, take care. Goodbye. After Zheng Yinhong finished speaking, he took his son out of the door. It was really as if he didn't take away a single cloud with him when he waved his sleeves. It was extremely natural and unrestrained. My husband, why are you interested in tea leaves? Didn't you used to hate tea the most? After Zheng Yinhong and his son left, Han Yushi came out of the side hall and walked to Li Zixuan's side. She blinked and asked curiously. Li Zixuan smiled and said, "Hey, that's because I didn't come across good tea leaves and didn't use the correct method of making tea. After these tea leaves are dried, I'll make a pot of good tea for you, my wife. At that time, my wife, you'll understand why your husband didn't drink those teas before." Father, are we leaving just like that? On the cement road at the foot of Cloud Mountain, the Zheng family's horse carriage galloped steadily. The smooth cement road caused the horse carriage to not jolt at all. In the horse carriage, Zheng Qianjun looked at his father puzzledly and asked. Zheng Yinhong leaned against the couch in the horse carriage and replied calmly, "Why? The sky is already dark and we're still not leaving. Don't tell me you want the Marquis to keep you for dinner on Cloud Mountain?" Finishing, Zheng Yinhong closed his eyes and planned to rest. Zheng Qianjun said helplessly, "No, father. I'm saying that you came to Cloud Mountain today just to deliver tea to the Marquis." Zheng Yinhong opened his eyes and said unhappily, "Why? Don't I look like it? Do you want me to use these tea leaves to exchange for some benefits with the Marquis? If I do that, I dare to guarantee that both of us will be chased out. This time the Marquis, like the tea leaves that we sent, is already a great piece of news to us. If we insist on other things, it will only make the Marquis feel that we're just unscrupulous merchants and not worth befriending. At the very least, we formed a good relationship with the Marquis, and this is something that many people can't even dream of. As for other matters, when our relationship reaches a certain level, even if we don't mention it, the Marquis will also give us a few ways to get rich. Take a look at Chao Wendong, Lin Wenyuan, and the others who followed the Marquis of Yong. Aren't they all doing better now? So, Qianjun, you still need to practice your shrewdness. When befriending a gentleman, you must not be too unscrupulous." Zheng Qianjun nodded his head thoughtfully and said, "Yes, father, I understand. But father, this time you sent the tea leaves to the Marquis is really too risky. But luckily you sent it right. The Marquis actually really likes fresh tea leaves. We're really lucky." "Lucky?" Zheng Yinhong smiled, then sighed and said, "Before I came here, I spent a lot of effort to send people to gather information about the Marquis of Yong's likes and dislikes, and I was thinking about what I should give him. But in the end, I realized that nothing I gave him was appropriate. Because the Marquis of Yong and doesn't lack money, power, good food, and wine, and it seems like he doesn't lack women. After thinking about it over and over again, father could only make such a risky move. I never expected that the Marquis would actually be just like father and like father to like fresh tea leaves and not tea leaves to make soup. Now that I think about it, we're really lucky. It's mainly because of father's courage. If it was anyone else, they would definitely not dare to take such a risk." Zheng Qianjun couldn't help but compliment, and then he changed the topic and sighed with emotion. "My horizons were broadened when I saw Yin Huang College and the courtyard on Cloud Mountain. Everyone says that the Marquis is a disciple of the gods, and now I believe it." Zheng Qianjun looked at his son with a smile that didn't look like a smile, and said, "You're about the same age as the Marquis. If you're as capable as the Marquis, father can die in peace. It's said that when you see a worthy person, you should emulate him. When you return this time, Qianjun, you have to study hard. Our Zheng family can't be a family of merchants for generations." Yes, father. The next day, there were no clouds in the sky, and it was clear that it was a sunny day. Li Zixuan instructed Xiao He and Xiao Shi to dry the spring tea that Zheng Yinhong had sent over. Early in the morning, 2 servants of the Zheng family delivered 10 boxes of spring tea to Li Zixuan. That's right, 10 boxes. Zheng Yinhong probably moved all of his stock over to Li Zixuan. Li Zixuan was delighted when he saw this. Anyway, he didn't mind having too much, so he let Xiao He and the rest dry it together. This process usually took about half a day. The purpose was to reduce the smell of grass in the tea leaves, so that the water content reached the requirements of stir-frying, and at the same time, to prevent the new tea from becoming lumpy when stir-frying. After making the arrangements, Li Zixuan went to Yanwang College. Recently, there were a lot of things to do at the college. As the head of the Yamacho, he naturally couldn't get away. In the afternoon, Li Zixuan had just finished his lunch. When he saw that the tea leaves in the backyard were almost dried, he was excited and asked someone to bring the tea leaves to the kitchen. He wanted to personally cook the tea leaves. "Husband, how can these tea leaves be stir-fried? Are you sure you didn't remember wrongly?" When Han Yushi heard that Li Zixuan wanted to stir-fry the tea leaves, she immediately followed him into the kitchen and asked. Li Zixuan smiled confidently and said, "Of course I didn't remember wrongly. Back then, my master drank stir-fried tea leaves, not tea powder. What's so good about tea powder? Hey, wife, you came at the right time. I haven't cooked for a long time, and my cooking skills have regressed. You can cook, and I'll teach you from the side." Speaking of which, before getting married, Li Zixuan's culinary skills were still considered decent in the Li family. But after getting married, he basically entered a state of eating and waiting to die. Han Yushi made delicious food for him every day in a variety of ways. If he hadn't persisted in practicing his sword every morning, he would probably have become as fat as a horse long ago. As a result, he basically didn't know how to cook now. He had become a king of mouths through and through. Since husband insists on stir-frying the tea, then I'll help you stir-fry it." Han Yushi nodded and then asked someone to help her find the apron that Li Zixuan invented. After tying it, she walked to the stove. She would never refuse Li Zixuan's request. Some people said that Li Zixuan doted on his wife, but it was better to say that Han Yushi doted on her husband. Wife, the whole process of stir-frying tea is divided into 3 stages: green pot, rejuvenation, and bright pot. The so-called green pot is to initially shape the tea leaves into a flat shape within a quarter of an hour. The tea leaves are stir-fried until they are 70 to 80% dry. Next is rejuvenation. After the green pot step, the tea leaves are spread flat in the bamboo sieve and rejuvenated. It takes about an hour. The last is bright pot. After the rejuvenated tea leaves are added to the pot and stir-fried until they are dry, reducing the moisture to about 5% and further shaping. This process takes about a quarter of an hour. After the bright pot, the tea leaves will be the finished product when they are cooled. They can be brewed with boiling water directly for drinking. Li Zixuan came to Han Yushi's side and roughly explained the steps of stir-frying tea. These were all things that he had seen on TV before. In terms of practice, he had never stir-fried it himself. Just now, when Li Zixuan was talking, Han Yushi was memorizing and thinking about the specific operation of each step in her mind. At this moment, after Li Zixuan finished speaking, she nodded thoughtfully and said, "Husband, I should understand now. Let me try." Li Zixuan said with a smile, "Hee, wife, you can try as much as you want. We still have a lot of tea leaves at home. It doesn't matter if you spoil it. Oh, come, let me help you with the fire. Isn't it tiring to work together with a man and a woman?" Han Yushi had long been accustomed to her husband's unconventional behavior. Hearing this, she rolled her eyes at Li Zixuan and said, "Husband, don't you need to go to the academy in the afternoon? I heard that there are a lot of things going on at the academy recently. You'd better go quickly. It's enough to have me and Xiao He here." Li Zixuan shook his head and said, "It's okay. I'll go after I'm done. At most, I'll stay at the academy for a while at night." Seeing that she couldn't persuade him, Han Yushi could only let Li Zixuan be. On the other side, Li Zishuan had already started burning firewood. Speaking of which, in this era, there was no gas, no natural gas, and no induction cooker. For stir-frying, they could only rely on firewood. Xiao had already helped Han Yushi clean the pot. When Han Yushi saw that the fire was almost ready, she poured the tea leaves that Xiao Shi handed over into the pot and began to stir-fry tea for the first time in her life. Chapter 1360. Yinshan Residence, Back Kitchen. All right. Husband, what do you think of the color? Can we get out of the pot? After working for nearly 2 hours, Han Yushi estimated the time, looked at the color of the tea leaves in the pot, and asked Li Zishuan. Li Zishuan stood up and looked into the pot. What he saw were pieces of flat, smooth, sharp, and tender green tea leaves. He looked at his wife in surprise and praised her. These stir-fried tea leaves are straight and sharp. They are flat and handsome. They are smooth and even. The color of the tea leaves is yellow and green. It is very tempting. It is really the best. Wife, you are really good at cooking. The control of the fire is just right. I am impressed. He was not bragging. The tea leaves that Han Yushi stir-fried were comparable to the top-grade Longjing tea that was sold in the tea shops in his previous life. Li Zishuan felt that marrying this wife was really a treasure. She could stir-fry tea to such a high standard for her first time. Han Yushi was happy in her heart, but she said embarrassedly, "Husband, you are talking nonsense again. I was just lucky. How can it be as good as you say?" Although she said that, the 2 little dimples on her cheeks betrayed her. Li Zishuan laughed and could not help but touch Han Yushi's white, jade-like cheeks. He said, "Haha, wife, don't be so modest. Let me make a cup of tea for you. Xiao He, you help me with the fire. Xiao Shi, have you boiled the water that I asked you to boil?" "Yes." "Young master." Yes. "Young master, it is boiling." Xiao He and Xiao Shi replied. "Good. Today, I will make a cup of tea for each of you. The best Hangzhou spring tea." After Li Zishuan finished speaking, he went out of the kitchen and personally went to get the teacups. Half an hour later, the 4 cups of tea were brewed. The green and clear tea was steaming, bringing the unique fragrance of the tea leaves into the air. Han Yushi, Xiao He, and Xiao Shi could not help but sniff. Their faces were filled with intoxication. "Husband, after the tea leaves are brewed like this, it does seem to be 100 times more fragrant than the tea we brewed before." After Han Yushi looked at the tender green and clear tea in front of her, she couldn't help but say with joy. Not to mention the taste, just by looking at the color and the aroma, the freshly brewed tea in front of him was 100 times better than the tea powder soup in the past. The tea brewed by young master looks good just by looking at it. It will definitely taste good when drunk. Xiao Yi blinked her eyes and said excitedly. Li Zishuan laughed and said, "Haha, whether it tastes good or not, we will only know after we drink it. Wife, Xiao Shi, quickly try it. Oh, be careful, don't burn yourself." "Yes. Thank you, husband." "Thank you, young master." Xiao He and Xiao Shi were flattered. After all, this was tea brewed by Li Zishuan himself. At this time, Li Zishuan also picked up the teacup. He first put it in front of his nose and took a light sniff, then closed his eyes with a face full of enjoyment. Speaking of which, he hadn't smelled such a pure tea fragrance for more than a year, right? After sighing with emotion, Li Zishuan gently blew on the hot tea in the cup. After a moment, he took a shallow sip. There was a faint bitter taste in the mouth, and then a burst of rich tea aroma exploded in the mouth, leaving a rich aftertaste. On the other side, Han Yushi also took a sip. Then her eyes widened and she exclaimed, "Husband, this tea tastes very special. The texture is smooth, and it leaves a fragrance in the mouth after drinking it. It's simply amazing." Yes. Although Xiao, he can't tell how it tastes good, I just feel that it is 10,000 times better than the tea we brewed in the past. And, young master, this tea is slightly bitter, but after savoring it carefully, it is full of fragrance. This feeling is just like life. Listening to the praise of the 3 beauties in the room, Li Zishuan smiled and said, "Haha, Xiao Shi is right. Sometimes Drinking tea is like tasting life. There is contemplation in the tea, enlightenment in the contemplation, reminiscence in life. Wife, take your time to enjoy it. I will bring some tea leaves to the academy to reward the teachers. Drinking tea is like tasting life. Han Yushi couldn't help but be startled. Then she smiled and said, Husband, you can go now. As for the remaining tea leaves, I will help you with Xiao He and the rest. Thank you for your hard work, my wife. Li Zishuan nodded, then took a small box of freshly brewed tea leaves and went out in the direction of Yanhuan College. Mo Zhong asked the canteen to boil 2 pots of water and bring them to the meeting room. Also bring some teacups. When he arrived at the academy, Li Zishuan directly called Mo Zhong and ordered, Yes, Yamacho. Mo Zhong was a little confused, but he still followed the order. Hey, Yamacho, you came at the right time. This is the list of secret carriers and secret places listed by our physics department. Please take a look. After Mo Zhong left, Li Zishuan had just walked in a Guanghua building when he met Mo Chue. Mo Chue was holding a pile of files. When he saw Li Zishuan coming to the academy, he quickly walked over and said, Li Zishuan glanced at the files in Mo Chue's hands, but he didn't take them. Instead, he said, I'll look at this later. Everyone has been working hard these past 2 days. Rest for a while. I brought you something good. Li Zishuan said as he led Mo Chue to the big meeting room on the first floor. It was Saturday, and the students had gone home for the holidays. Only the teachers were still busy working overtime in the meeting room. Arriving at the conference room, Li Zishuan cleared his throat and said to the busy teachers of the academy, Thank you for your hard work, gentlemen. Put down the things at hand and rest for a while. Today I brought you something good that can lift your spirits and reduce fatigue. Everyone have a good taste. The teachers in the meeting room immediately looked at Li Zishuan. Li Gang stroked his beard and asked curiously, Yamacho, what is it that can be so magical? Could it be some kind of medicine? No, Yamacho, you let us taste it, which means it's not medicine. Yes, Brother Wenji's analysis is correct. It seems that the thing Yamacho is talking about is a new kind of delicacy. Then this old man wants to have a good taste. Yin Silu followed Li Gang and echoed. Hearing him say this, everyone in the room couldn't help but swallow. Delicacy, and it was brought by Li Zishuan himself. How could the taste be bad? Who in the Tang Empire didn't know that Li Zishuan was a veritable food king? Seeing this scene, Li Zishuan showed the wooden box of tea leaves in his hand and said with amusement, Ha ha, you don't have to guess anymore. Here it's tea. Today, I brought you a new way to drink tea. Yamacho, here's the boiled water you asked for. At this moment, Mo Zhong and Mo Yun came in with 2 pots of steaming boiled water. Behind them were 10 or so waiters from the canteen, each carrying a tray of teacups. Give each gentleman a teacup. Mo Zhong, Mo Yun, you 2 carry the kettles and come with me. Li Zishuan gave a simple order, and the waiters in the canteen took the lead and got to work. Li Zishuan led Mo Zhong and Mo Yun to stand behind Li Gang. The old gentleman cooperatively stepped aside. Li Zishuan opened the tea box, and immediately a fragrant smell wafted out. Li Gang raised his eyebrows in surprise and couldn't help but close his eyes, greedily breathing in the tea fragrance coming from the tea box. Li Zishuan added a small pinch of tea leaves into the old gentleman's teacup, and then had Mo Zhong pour boiling water into it. The tea leaves first floated on the surface of the water, but they quickly sank. The clear water in the teacup had already turned a tender green color, and it was extremely tempting. Moreover, the rich tea fragrance coming from the teacup made the people nearby salivate. Gulp! What tea leaves are these? Why are whole leaves used instead of tea powder? Also, why are these tea leaves giving off such a rich tea fragrance just by soaking them in boiling water? Yin Silu said with a shocked expression. The Yin family had a long history of learning. What kind of tea had Yin Silu not tasted in his life? However, he had never seen a tea drinking method like Li Zishuan, where the tea leaves were directly soaked in boiling water. Moreover, the tea made with this method had a clear color and a rich aroma. which made him even more puzzled. That's right, Yamacho, why is your tea drinking method completely different from the way we used to drink tea? Majo also said with a puzzled expression. Lisa Xuan added tea leaves into Yen Sila's cup next to him and said with a smile, I said at the very beginning that today I'm bringing a brand new tea drinking method to all of you. Don't worry, everyone, there's a share for everyone. After that, he personally placed the tea leaves in the cups of the leaders of the 5 academic departments. At this time, Mo Zhong said very perceptively, Yamacho, let me do it. I remember the amount of tea leaves you put in each cup just now. There are more than 70 teachers in this room. Li Zixuan naturally couldn't put tea leaves in every one of them. Hearing that, he went with the flow and said, that's fine, but be careful. Don't burn others, and don't burn yourselves. Okay, Yamacho, don't worry. Mo Zhong responded, then took the tea box and began to pour tea for the teachers in the room. After half an hour, everyone in the room was given a cup of tea. The entire conference room was suddenly filled with the fragrance of tea. At this moment, even someone with a weak nose would be intoxicated by the tea fragrance. This tea is definitely not ordinary. I, Wang Wugong, have drunk wine all my life and don't like to drink tea. However, after smelling this tea today, I'm actually a little hungry. Everyone, please, I'll first taste this fragrant tea and see how it tastes. Wang Ji picked up the teacup and sniffed it hard. Then, he eagerly put it to his mouth and blew on it fiercely. When he felt that the tea wasn't so hot anymore, he directly took a big sip. Slurp. The sound of this old drunkard drinking tea was like slurping noodles. It really made people speechless. The texture is smooth and it's slightly bitter. However, after tasting it carefully, one can feel the rich tea fragrance and even a hint of sweetness. Wonderful. Too wonderful. This elegant sweetness moistens my throat. I can't even bear to rinse my mouth for 3 days. This tea should only exist in heaven. It's rare to taste it in the human world. Wang Ji closed his eyes and savored it carefully. Then, he suddenly opened his eyes and laughed loudly like a drunkard. Chapter 1361. In the large conference room on the first floor of the Guanghua building of Yanwang College. The teachers sitting in a room heard Wang Ji praise the tea as if it was the only tea in heaven and the only tea on earth. They couldn't help but pick up their teacups and blow on it. Then, they began to taste it carefully. For a moment, the conference room was filled with the sound of blowing and sipping. Yes, Mr. Wang is right. This tea should only be found in heaven. It's bitter at first and sweet at last. The taste is mellow and refreshing. After drinking it, the taste lingers on the teeth and cheeks. After drinking this cup of tea, you can recollect your whole life. The realm of life is like tea. The taste of tea reveals one's nature. Yamacho's tea leaves and the method of making tea are really wonderful. It was the first time for everyone in the room to drink this kind of brewed tea. They all closed their eyes and savored it carefully. After a long time, Li Gang was the first to open his eyes. The old man had a face full of surprise as he sighed with emotion. The realm of life is like tea. The tea tastes life. Brother Wenji, you're right. A cup of tea can make people recall the joys and sorrows of life. Maybe this tea is the immortal tea? Yen Silu stroked his beard and nodded in agreement. Yes, that's right. Only the immortal tea in heaven can have such a taste. Wonderful, wonderful. This tea is so fragrant. It's sweet and fragrant like orchids. It's quiet but not cold. It seems to be tasteless. After drinking it, I feel a kind of chi between the teeth and cheeks. It's tasteless and even tasteless. The color, fragrance, and taste are perfect. This tea is comparable to a supreme delicacy. Su Hongji, Xiaoyan, Ma Zhou, and the other teachers in the room all sighed and praised the tea. Oh, quick, quick, quick. Give me another cup of water. Wouldn't it be a waste if I don't make such good tea 10 or 8 times? Wang Ji, the old drunkard, didn't have the time to sigh. He quickly downed a cup of tea and asked Mo Zhong for water. Li Zixuan was speechless. Generally, tea leaves were only soaked 3 times. The first time the tea leaves were infused with 50% of the soluble matter. The second to fourth soaking was 30%, 10%, and 1% to 3% respectively. 80% of the vitamins and amino acids in the tea leaves could be extracted in the first soak, and more than 95% of the vitamins and amino acids in the tea leaves would be extracted in the second soak. Therefore, if Wang Ji wanted to use the same cup of tea to brew it for 10 or 8 times, it was completely nonsense. If that really happened, he probably wouldn't be able to drink it himself. Oh, this old man does seem a little more spirited. It seems like this tea really has the miraculous effect of boosting one's spirit. At this time, Li Gang suddenly felt his mind become clearer. He didn't know if it was an illusion, so he hesitantly said. As soon as this was said, it immediately received the approval of many people. Yen Silla was pleasantly surprised. It seemed to be the case. Yamacho, not only can your tea taste life, but it can also boost one's spirit. It's really amazing. Majo said, whether it's color, taste, or effect, this tea is far from comparable to the tea I've drunk before. Wang Ji nodded repeatedly and said, Yes, that's right. Yamacho, where did you get this tea? Where can I buy it? After drinking this kind of tea, how can other teas still taste good? That's right. Yamacho, where can I buy this tea? Hearing Wang Ji's question, the rest of the people came to their senses. As the saying goes, comparisons are odious. Now that they had drunk this kind of immortal tea, how could they still be interested in the other ordinary things of the mortal world? Therefore, they had to quickly ask Li Zishuan where they could buy it. Otherwise, wouldn't they have no tea to drink in the future? The teachers of Yanhuang College didn't have a low monthly salary. Moreover, they usually devoted themselves to teaching and studying in Yanshan, so they didn't spend much in their daily lives. Therefore, most people felt that as long as there was a place to buy this tea, they could more or less afford it. But it was a pity, I obtained this tea by chance from a friend. Then I used 18 processing techniques such as shaking, putting, pressing, spreading, swinging, sticking, grasping, pressing, grinding, and so on. Currently, in the entire Tang Dynasty, or even the entire world, there are no other places that sell this tea, except for the tea in my hands. Li Zishuan replied proudly. Wang Ji was speechless. He only wanted to know where to buy these magical tea leaves. He didn't care how the tea leaves were processed. At this moment, seeing Li Zishuan's smug face showing off, to be honest, although Wang Ji was usually very respectful of Li Zishuan, he suddenly wanted to punch Li Zishuan's smug face. Yamacho, aren't you tricking us? You let us taste such good tea once, but then you tell us that there's no place to sell it. You're leaving us with no water to drink in the future. The old drunkard looked at Li Zishuan with a bitter face and said he had planned to buy some of this tea to replace alcohol. After all, Li Zishuan had told him before that excessive drinking was harmful to the body, especially for an old man like him. Yes, Yamacho, you gave us such good tea. How can we drink other tea in the future? Aren't you torturing us? Yes. Yamacho, can you get Wonderful Taste Pavilion or Drunken Immortal House to find a way to sell this tea? After Wang Ji's voice fell, the other teachers in the room began to complain, ask. Li Zishuan's face was full of helplessness. He didn't even have much of this high-quality Hangzhou spring tea. If he had known, he wouldn't have taken it out to show off. What a sin. He thought for a moment, then suddenly rolled his eyes and said loudly, Ahem! Everyone, although this tea is not sold elsewhere, I'll leave a box with Mr. Wenji. Whenever you want to drink it, you can ask Mr. Wenji for it. Okay, the tea has been tasted. Everyone, let's do your work. Mo, Chue, didn't you have something to show me earlier? Bring it to my office. After giving his instructions, Li Zishuan hurriedly slipped away as if there was oil under his feet. The main thing was that more than 70 men were looking at you with bitter eyes. No one could stand it. Mo Chue hurriedly held the file and chased after Li Zishuan. Oh, this guy also took away his unfinished tea. He was probably afraid that someone would steal it after he left. Everyone in the room turned their gazes to Li Gang at this moment. In their eyes, Some were eager to try, some were timid and hesitant, and some were drooling. Li Gang, who was innocently implicated, twitched the corner of his mouth at this moment. Yamacho, you're tricking me. Aren't you passing on your hatred? But when he thought of the wonderful taste of the tea, Li Gang instantly felt that if he was tricked, then so be it. This was a trap worth jumping into. Ahem. Continue with your work. As for the tea given by Yamacho, I won't keep it to myself. Li Gang straightened his face and said to everyone with a serious face. Hearing this, many of the new teachers couldn't help but feel bitter in their hearts. They thought to themselves, you are so respected. When the time comes, even if we want to drink some immortal tea, how would we dare to frequently ask you for it? Li Zishuan left a box of tea leaves for Li Gang and then sent someone to deliver a small box to Sun Simiao. This could be considered a small benefit for the medical school. After some thought, he also sent someone to deliver a large box of tea leaves to the palace. He even included the brewing method and effects of the tea leaves. This was considered a public bribe to Li Er. Logically speaking, the reason why he could live so well in the Tang Empire was inseparable from Li Er's appreciation and tolerance. Take the incident with the Japanese princess as an example. What he had done could be big or small. If it was a big matter, he would be demoted and stripped of his title. If it was a small matter, he would be reduced to a small matter. In the end, Li Zishuan forgave him because of his outstanding contributions to Yanhuang College and the Tang Empire. This made Li Zishuan feel grateful from the bottom of his heart. Therefore, he decided that from now on, he would be a bootlicker. Once there was something good like tea leaves, he would send a portion to Old Li and Empress Zhongsun. This way, when he made a mistake in the future, Li Er might be lenient on account of their old friendship. Even if Old Li couldn't do it, Empress Zhongsun would definitely plead for him. It was said that a bootlicker would eventually have nothing, but a bootlicker of the emperor would eventually have everything. At the same time, Li Zishuan also sent someone to inform Zheng Yinhong, Zheng Qianjun, Chao Wendong, Lin Wenyuan, and the other members of the Yanhuang Chamber of Commerce to come to Yin Mountain tomorrow afternoon to participate in the tea-tasting conference. He guessed that the reason why Zheng Yinhong came to visit him yesterday was probably because he was interested in the business of the Yanhuang Chamber of Commerce. It just so happened that the land of Jiangnan was an undeveloped land for Li Zishuan. Li Zishuan also had the intention to expand his business to Jiangnan. At night in the palace, Servant Guanyin, you came at the right time. Li Zishuan sent someone to deliver a box of tea leaves. Come and have a taste. In the Sweet Dew Palace, Li Er saw Empress Zhongsun walk in with a bowl of white fungus soup. He immediately smiled. Tea leaves? If I remember correctly, didn't that child always dislike tea leaves? Why did he send a box to the emperor? Empress Zhongsun put the white fungus soup on the dragon table and then said with a strange expression, I'm also wondering what this kid is up to, but his tea leaves are definitely not as good as Servant Guanyin's white fungus soup. Let me finish this white fungus soup first. Li Er smiled and inwardly flattered Empress Zhongsun. Then he picked up the white fungus soup on the dragon table and began to drink it. Empress Zhongsun glanced at Li Er with her beautiful eyes, then picked up the wooden box that Li Er had placed to the side. She examined it carefully for a while, then opened the lid of the wooden box. Immediately, a burst of tea fragrance rushed out. She then saw the flat, smooth, sharp, and tender green tea leaves in the wooden box. She immediately opened her small mouth in surprise, saying, "What are you talking about?" "Ah, Your Majesty, these are complete tea leaves and not tea powder. Also, these tea leaves can actually emit such a strong tea fragrance. They are definitely not ordinary. There was a note on it. Take a small amount of tea leaves and put it in a cup. Brew it with boiling water. When the water temperature is not too hot, you can drink it. Drinking it can raise one's spirits, reduce fatigue, help digestion, and delay aging. Could it be that these tea leaves are immortal tea? It doesn't need to be cooked and only needs to be brewed with boiling water. Moreover, it has so many effects on the human body. Is Marquis Yong and joking with us? Oh, reduce fatigue and delay aging? These tea leaves have such effects. Hearing this, Li'er raised his eyebrows in surprise and said, "Let someone brew 2 cups. Won't we know once we taste it? If this kid is bragging, I will teach him a lesson." Empress Zhang's son covered her mouth and smiled. "Yes, Your Majesty." Then she ordered the servants to boil a pot of water in the imperial kitchen and bring it over. Nowadays, honeycomb coal and coal stoves were widely used. Of course, the imperial palace also had these. Therefore, it didn't take much time to boil a pot of water. In less than a quarter of an hour, an eunuch came in with a pot of water. Empress Zhang's son personally took it and then said with a slight smile, "Your Majesty is always busy with state affairs and has to deal with a myriad of affairs every day. Let me make a cup of tea for Your Majesty. Let's see if these tea leaves have the effect of reducing fatigue." Saying this, she took out a small handful of tea leaves from the wooden box and threw it into the jade-white teacup. Then she lifted the pot and carefully poured the boiling water into the teacup. Trickles of water flowed down from the opening of the pot and formed a small whirlpool in the teacup. The tea leaves flowed with the flow and spun on the surface of the water happily. However, they quickly sank, and the color of the tea instantly turned into a tender yellow and clear color. It was extremely tempting. Li'er originally did not pay much attention to Li Zishuan's tea leaves. However, at this moment, his expression finally became serious. Smelling the tea fragrance in the air and looking at the clear and tender yellow tea, Li'er could not help but say, "This tea has both color and fragrance. It's really special. Let me have a taste and see how it tastes." Saying this, he lifted the teacup and blew on it. Then he took a sip and closed his eyes to taste it carefully. It's slightly bitter when it enters the mouth, but after tasting it carefully, I can feel that there is a hint of fruity or faint floral fragrance in the tea. This feeling reminds me of my early military years. Yes, the taste is fresh, refreshing, and sweet. The tea leaves that have been boiled before cannot be compared to this tea. Furthermore, after I drank it, I did become more energetic. These tea leaves are really magical. Maid Guanyin, you should also try it. After a long while, Li'er opened his eyes and said with a bright light in his eyes, "Yes, for this tea to be praised by Your Majesty, this concubine must try it no matter what." Empress Zhang's son nodded. At this time, a palace maid had already poured her a cup of tea. Empress Zhang's son placed the cup by her mouth and took a sip. A moment later, her pair of beautiful eyes suddenly blossomed with infinite brilliance. She swallowed the tea and then repeatedly exclaimed in admiration, "Green color, rich fragrance, sweet taste, and beautiful shape. Your Majesty, in this concubine's opinion, the tea leaves that Marquis Yong and offered are unmatched in these 4 aspects. They can be called the 4 best." Hearing this, Li'er clapped and laughed. "Ha ha, good. Maid Guanyin summed it up well. These tea leaves can indeed be called the 4 best. At least that brat Li Zishuan has some conscience. He knows to give me a portion of the good stuff when he gets it. Now that I have drunk this tea, I will not be able to drink any other tea in the future." Zhao Song passed down the decree to Li Zishuan. In the future, he will be responsible for the palace's tribute tea. This old servant obeys the decree. Zhao Song did not know that Li Zishuan did not have many tea leaves. Hearing this, he agreed and planned to send someone to pass down the decree to Li Zishuan tomorrow. Chapter 1362. Father, I heard that Duke Yong and invited us to the Cloud Mountain for the tea-tasting conference. East of Chang and City, Zheng family's mansion in the capital. Zheng Qianjun came to the study and asked Zheng Yinhong. Zheng Yinhong nodded and smiled. "That's right, but this time, Qianjun, you don't have to go." Zheng Qianjun said unhappily, "Why, father? I won't ruin your plans." To be honest, he quite liked going to the Cloud Mountain, especially the tall and majestic cement building of Yanwang College. Even though the Zheng family was rich in Jiangnan, they didn't have such a luxurious house as the one on the Cloud Mountain. Zheng Yinhong shook his head and said, I've received news that those who are attending the tea tasting conference are the major members of the Yanhuang Chamber of Commerce. They should be there to discuss business matters. Qianjun, aren't you not interested in these things? Besides, the Wind Thunder team has a match tomorrow. Someone has to watch the field. You should go to the field tomorrow. Yes, father. Zheng Qianjun hesitated for a moment and nodded. Then his eyes suddenly lit up and he asked, Father, Marquis invited the members of the Yanhuang Chamber of Commerce. Does he want to take some of our business? It seems that Marquis likes the tea you gave him yesterday. Zheng Yinhong chuckled as he stroked his beard and said, Ha ha, no matter what, it's good for our family. Let's see what Duke Yong will do tomorrow. The next day, in the Cloud Mountain residence, Li Zixuan had just finished his breakfast when a servant from the palace came to the Cloud Mountain and told him that Li Er had listed the tea he offered yesterday as a tribute. He would be responsible for the tea in the palace in the future. Li Zixuan was instantly dumbfounded because he didn't have any of these tea leaves in stock. Chang'an city was located in the northwest of China. The climate was dry, but the growth of tea trees had higher requirements for sunshine, temperature, moisture, wind, and air humidity. Tea trees like diffuse light. Generally, tea trees that grew in high mountains, forests, or clouds had better quality. Therefore, since ancient times, there had been many large-scale tea production bases in the south of China, which were world-renowned and well-known. The famous tea in China was basically produced in the south, while the north was relatively unknown in comparison. Now, that Li Er had asked him to be in charge of the tea supply for the palace, wasn't this a waste? Where would he get so many tea leaves? After thinking about it, he could only let Zheng Yinhong do it. He was sure that the old man would be very happy. At 7 in the morning, Zheng Yinhong, Chao Wendong, Lin Wenyuan, and the others arrived on time. Zheng Yinhong and Chao Wendong had crossed paths before, and because of the storm team, Zheng Yinhong's name was already widely known by the people of Chang'an. Therefore, when they arrived at the Cloud Mountain residence, Zheng Yinhong had already gotten along well with Lin Wenyuan, Feng Zhihua, and the other members of the Flaming Yellow Chamber of Commerce. Greetings, Marquis. After being informed by the servants, the group came to the front yard. Li Zixuan had already set up the teacups under the pavilion in the front yard. There was also a stove beside him, boiling hot water. Zheng Yinhong, Chao Wendong, and the others quickly bowed to Li Zixuan. Hee, everyone, don't be so polite. Have a seat. Li Zixuan smiled and gestured for everyone to take a seat. At this time, he ordered, Shall he pour the tea? Yes, young master. Shao He bowed and poured the water into the teacups on the stone table. Instantly, the aroma of tea filled the courtyard. Everyone was naturally amazed by this novel tea brewing technique and the color of the tea soup. Compared to the previous method of boiling tea powder and various seasonings in a pot, this kind of tea soup brewed with boiling water had a more clear and attractive color. Just from appearance alone, it was better by a notch. However, what was even more amazing was the taste of the tea. It was bitter at first, then sweet, and left a lingering fragrance in everyone's mouth. Zheng Yinhong exclaimed, Marquis, the taste of this tea is really unique. There's sweetness in the bitterness, and there's a fragrance in the sweetness. Especially when you swallow the tea, the fragrance suddenly explodes, and you feel like your organs are filled with the tea's fragrance. In the past, I didn't like to drink tea made with crushed tea powder. I used fresh tea leaves that were picked and boiled over a small fire before drinking. The taste was very delicious, so before this, I thought that I had created an amazing method of brewing tea. However, compared to Marquis tea today, I really feel that all the tea I drank before was wasted. However, I'm a little curious. Are these tea leaves really the tea leaf that I sent to Marquis the day before yesterday? Why is the taste so different? Li Zixuan couldn't help but secretly smile. He thought to himself that Zheng Yinhong was quite knowledgeable in the way of tea. He actually knew to give up on using tea powder and use whole tea leaves. However, he used raw tea leaves, so the taste was much worse. As far as he knew, fresh tea leaves could indeed be brewed with boiling water directly. However, The tea that was brewed would have a strong, grassy taste. After all, tea leaves that weren't fried were the most primitive and most natural state of tea leaves. The tea tree was also a type of herb. Hee. Of course, these tea leaves are the ones that Villain Master Zheng sent over the day before yesterday. Otherwise, where would I get so many tea leaves in such a short time? Lisa Xuan looked at Zheng Yinhong and smiled. However, the tea leaves that Villain Master Zheng sent over, I used a special method to process them. That's why the fragrance is even stronger. Here, everyone, please take a look at the shape of the tea leaves after the processing. As he spoke, Li Zixuan asked Xiao she to bring over a box of fried tea leaves and handed it to Zheng Yinhong. Thank you very much, Marquis. Zheng Yinhong received the box with both hands and opened it. He was instantly shocked because the tea leaves in the box had not been brewed with boiling water, yet they were emitting a strong tea fragrance. To him, this was simply unbelievable. Zheng Yinhong had been doing business all his life. He even managed such a big stall like Misty Rain Villa. Naturally, he knew how to conduct himself. He poured out 3 to 4 tea leaves from the wooden box and poured them into his hands. Then, he handed the wooden box to Chao Wendong and said, "Come, Brother Chao, let's take a look." Chao Wendong nodded gratefully at Zheng Yinhong and said, "All right, just nice. Let's broaden our horizons." Soon, everyone was given a few pieces of tea leaves and began to observe them carefully. TSK. These processed tea leaves are all flat and smooth, sharp, tender and green, even and heavy. This is simply amazing. Zheng Yinhong had done quite a bit of research on the way of tea. After a careful observation, he first clicked his tongue in wonder and sighed. Then he asked somewhat uncertainly, "Marquis, have these tea leaves been fried in a pot?" Li Zixuan nodded and praised, "Haha, Heights Lord Zheng really has good eyesight. These tea leaves are indeed fried." Zheng Yinhong exclaimed, "To be able to fry the tea leaves into such a flat, smooth, sharp, and uniform shape, it's really not easy. The person who fried the tea leaves has exquisite skills. It's simply uncanny workmanship. I'm really impressed." Li Zixuan smiled and said, "To be honest, the person who fried the tea leaves is my wife." The ancients usually addressed their wives as lowly wives to outsiders, but Li Zixuan was not used to it. Everyone was shocked. They quickly stood up and cupped their fists. To be able to taste Marquis's wife's culinary skills is truly a blessing of 3 lifetimes. Thank you, Marquis, for your hospitality today. You don't have to be so polite, Li Zixuan said with a smile as he stretched out his hand. Only then did everyone sit down again. At this time, Chao Wendong asked, "Marquis, these tea leaves are so fragrant and elegant. It's so special that it should have a name. I wonder if Marquis has a suitable name in mind?" Yes. How can such an immortal tea not have a nice name? Marquis, why don't you give this tea a name today? Zheng Yinhong quickly agreed. Li Zixuan heard this and pinched his chin. After pondering for a moment, he said, "Since everyone thinks that this is an immortal tea, why don't we call it the Immortal Tea?" Although he wanted to directly name it Westlake Longjing, at this time, Westlake had not been born yet. Moreover, he did not know if there was a Longjing village in this era. If he named it Westlake Longjing, no one would know what it meant. The predecessor of Westlake was originally the intersection of the hills and the East Sea. In the Tang Dynasty, Bai Juyi served as the magistrate of Hangzhou. In order to improve the drinking conditions of the people of Hangzhou, he organized artificial dredging of Westlake, so that Westlake evolved from a purely natural lake to a semi-natural and semi-artificial lake. Later, in the Northern Song Dynasty, when Su Dongpa served as the Zhizhou of Hangzhou, he organized the dredging of Westlake and piled it up into a long dike. Later generations named it Su Dike in commemoration. It was precisely because of historical figures like Bai Juyi, Su Dongpa, and other historical figures that not only regulated Westlake, but also praised Westlake with their own flower-making magic pen. The beauty of Westlake slowly began to be deeply rooted in the hearts of the people. But in Tang Chu's moment, if you told people about Westlake, they would probably be confused and not know what you were talking about. Immortal tea? That's a good name. First there was the immortal drunken wine, then the immortal mirror, then the immortal lamp, and now the immortal tea. Good, 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 good name. Zheng Yinhong was stunned, then clapped his hands and laughed. The rest of the people also felt that the three words immortal tea were quite appropriate, and it could echo the name of Li Zixuan's previous products, so they spoke out to express their appreciation. I just don't know if Marquis has any intention of doing a tea business. With the unique stir-frying method of the immortal tea, the novel and simple brewing method, as well as its sweet and refreshing taste and texture, this Zheng dares to guarantee that as long as Marquis is willing to sell it, it will definitely become popular all over the world. Zheng Yinhong suddenly looked at Li Zixuan and said. Hearing this, everyone came back to their senses, and they all cast their gazes towards Li Zixuan, because this was a very big cake. Li Zixuan was happy. He was waiting for Zheng Yinhong to say this, so he smiled and said, "Haha, of course I want to do this tea business, but I need everyone to cooperate with me." Chapter 1363. 2-in-1 chapter. Oh, Marquis, if you have any orders, I will do my best to cooperate with you. Yinshan residence. Hearing that Li Zixuan wanted to start a tea business and needed everyone's help, Zheng Yinhong's expression changed. He quickly cupped his hands and said, "We are also willing to lend Marquis a helping hand." Chao and Dong and the others also cupped their hands and said. Li Zixuan nodded and said, "Good. With everyone's help, this Marquis has even more confidence in doing this tea business. First, we have to solve the problem of the source of the tea. The weather in the north is dry and not suitable for tea trees to grow, so the tea leaves must be picked from the south." Speaking of this, Li Zixuan looked at Zheng Yinhong and said, "I sent the tea leaves to the palace yesterday. After His Majesty tasted it, he liked it very much and decided to list the immortal tea as a tribute tea. So, in the future, the tea leaves that the palace needs will be collected in the Jiangnan area." Tribute tea? Everyone was shocked, and their hearts were in turmoil. However, Zheng Yinhong's expression changed, and he said, "Marquis, the immortal tea being listed as a tribute tea shows that its quality is unparalleled in the world. But once it is listed as a tribute tea, it should not be sold casually among the people." Hearing this, everyone came to their senses. Chao Wendong nodded and said, "Marquis, what Manor Head Zheng said is reasonable. Once the immortal tea is listed as a tribute tea, how can the people enjoy it casually?" Li Zixuan waved his hand and said with a smile, "You can't say that. His Majesty loves the people like his children and likes to enjoy with them. Besides, we can make a batch of top-grade immortal tea and supply it to the palace. As for the lower-grade ones, we can sell them to the people. When the time comes, the immortal tea will borrow the reputation of the tribute tea and sell it to the people." In the Tang Dynasty, there were no strict restrictions on the tributes to the palace. Every place only needed to deliver the tributes to the court on time. It did not mean that once something was listed as a tribute, it could not be sold among the people. For example, cucumbers had always been a tribute before the Tang Dynasty and during the Tang Dynasty. But could the people not eat it? Obviously not. As long as you have the money, you can definitely buy it. As for the imperial tribute tea, there had never been a precedent before. Zheng Yinhong and the others were only worried because they wanted to be absolutely sure. Marquis' move is brilliant. However, can this immortal tea also be divided into 3, 6, and 9 grades? Feng Zhihua stroked his beard and asked doubtfully. The tea leaves they used to drink were all crushed tea leaves mixed with seasonings. How could there be any concept of grading tea leaves? Li Zixuan smiled and said, "Of course, tea leaves can be divided into different grades. Generally speaking, for fresh tea leaves, the shorter the buds and leaves, the more tender they are, and the smaller the angle between the buds and leaves, the better the quality of the tea leaves. Therefore, top-grade fresh tea leaves must have a bud and a leaf that have just bloomed. The angle of the bud and leaf should be small. The bud should be longer than the leaf. The bud and leaf should be uniform and fat, and the bud and leaf should not be more than an inch long. In addition, The stir-frying method should also be particular. In my opinion, after stir-frying, the tea leaves should be flat and smooth, delicate and sharp, tender and green, uniform and heavy, and the bud peak should be visible. In this way, the top-grade fresh tea leaves, coupled with the top-grade stir-frying method, will naturally become the top-grade immortal tea. Using this top-grade immortal tea as a tribute and selling the slightly inferior ones will not only save the emperor's face, but also let the world taste the delicious immortal tea. It can be said to be killing two birds with one stone. Hearing this, everyone nodded and thought that this plan was very appropriate. Zheng Yinhong was even more convinced. He cupped his hands and said, Marquis's research and attainments in the way of tea can be said to be a master of a generation. I used to think that I had done a lot of research in the way of tea, but after listening to Marquis's words today, I realized that I was just a frog at the bottom of a well. Heights Lord Zheng, you don't have to say that. In fact, I learned these things from my master. They're not my own skills. Li Zishuan smiled and then said, Heights Lord Zheng, I want to build a tea garden in the Jiangnan area, but I have been in Chang'an for many years and have no time to manage the tea garden, so as long as Marquis trusts me, I am willing to manage the tea garden for Marquis. As soon as Li Zishuan finished his words, Zheng Yinhong immediately said, Chao Wendong and the others were silent at this moment. Although they had business dealings with the South, they were not Southerners after all. They were not like Zheng Yinhong, who had a large foundation and a wide network in the South. They wanted to help Li Zishuan build a tea garden in the South, but they did not have the ability to do so. Li Zishuan smiled and said, I appreciate Heights Lord Zheng's kindness. It's not that I don't trust you, but I will feel sorry for troubling Heights Lord Zheng. Therefore, I want to open a tea garden with Heights Lord Zheng, specializing in picking and frying immortal tea. I am also willing to share the frying method of the immortal tea. Together, we can build the largest, most famous, and best tea garden. As soon as he said that, everyone was shocked. No one expected that Li Zishuan would be willing to share the frying method of the immortal tea. It should be known that with the reputation of the tribute tea and the excellent taste of the immortal tea, as long as Li Zishuan solved the problem of the source of the tea leaves, he could rely on the tea leaves to make endless wealth. After all, in the whole Tang Empire, no tea merchant could produce tea leaves that could compete with the immortal tea. Naturally, there was no way to compete with Li Zishuan. Zheng Yinhong was well known in the Jiangnan market. He was not a person who had not seen the world. But at this moment, he could not help but be moved. He quickly bowed and said, How can I open a tea garden with you, Marquis? If Marquis needs anything, I am willing to help Marquis with all my strength. I dare not covet Marquis's frying method. Zheng Yinhong was indeed a person who had seen a big scene. In the face of huge benefits, he still kept his heart at the critical moment. He was not stupid. Although he was a powerful businessman in Jiangnan, Li Zishuan was a noble marquis. If he wanted to kill him, it would be as easy as killing an ant. After all, the social hierarchy of scholars, farmers, businessmen, and businessmen was not a joke. Therefore, he thought quickly and seriously considered it, but still rejected this tempting proposal. Li Zishuan couldn't help but nod in his heart when he saw this. After that, he looked at Zheng Yinhong with a spurious smile and said, Manor Lord Zheng, you're a businessman. We're talking about business right now. Fairness is the most important thing in business. Helping me build a tea garden for free isn't the way to do business. You should know that I am not short of money, and I don't like to use my power to oppress others. So if you're willing to help, I will give you 40% of the shares. In the future, you will get 40% of the profits of the tea garden. If you're not willing to help, it doesn't matter. I will find someone else. In the face of Li Zishuan's generous offer, everyone present felt a rush of excitement. Chao Wendong and the others all looked at Zheng Yinhong enviously. Zheng Yinhong frowned and did not speak. From his frown and serious expression, one could see that he was struggling fiercely in his heart. After a long silence, Zheng Yinhong finally opened his mouth. He bowed to Li Zishuan and said, Marquis is upright and righteous, benevolent and kind. This Zheng admires you greatly. Since Marquis treats me with sincerity, I, Zheng Yinhong, swear here today that I will do my best to manage the tea garden for Marquis for generations to come. If there is any betrayal, I am willing to let the men of my Zheng family be slaves and the women be prostitutes for generations. He understood that after obtaining Li Zishuan's secret method of frying tea, he had to be loyal to Li Zishuan and make Li Zishuan completely believe in him. Therefore, he made such a heavy oath. Everyone was moved. Li Zishuan's expression also couldn't help but change slightly. It should be known that the ancient people attached great importance to oaths. No one dared to casually swear, and no one would be like Zheng Yinhong, directly swearing on their descendants. Li Zishuan hurriedly helped Zheng Yinhong up and said, "Master Zheng, you don't have to do this. The Zheng family has been doing business in Jiangnan for generations and is very trustworthy. Who doesn't know Master Zheng's trustworthiness? Who doesn't believe you?" To be honest, there were two main reasons why he shared the secret method of frying tea so easily. First, his method of frying tea was actually not difficult to learn. Once the immortal tea was launched, all the tea merchants in the world would definitely be able to figure out his method of frying tea within a year. Instead of keeping the secret method of frying tea a secret, it was better to monopolize all the high-quality tea gardens in Jiangnan while the tea market was still blank. In this way, Zheng Yinhong, the local snake, would definitely be inseparable. Second, Li Zishuan actually didn't plan to do the tea business at first. At most, he wanted to make a small batch of tea for himself and for the people around him to drink. Moreover, he was now devoted to promoting the basic technology of the Tang Empire and didn't want to spend time making money from the tea business. He didn't lack money. However, Li Er listed the immortal tea as a tribute tea and let him be responsible for the tea supply of the palace. Since he decided yesterday to be a bootlicker, he could only bootlicker to the end. Since he didn't have time, he could only delegate to Zheng Yinhong and the others. Anyway, he was confident that with his current status, Zheng Yinhong wouldn't dare to betray him. He believed that Zheng Yinhong was a smart person. Now that Zheng Yinhong had made such a solemn vow, he was even more certain that his judgment was correct. Chao Wendong, who was at the side, also nodded at this moment and said, "The Zheng family is famous in Jiangnan. They are the most trustworthy in the business world. This is indeed known by everyone." Zheng Yinhong looked at Chao Wendong gratefully, then clasped his hands at Li Zishuan and said, "Marquis is so sincere, but I can't refuse. I can only take 30% of the shares of the Immortal Tea Garden. If Marquis is unwilling, then I can only accept it. However, I have a presumptuous request, and I hope that Marquis can agree to it." "Oh, Owner Zheng, please speak." Li Zishuan's expression changed slightly, and he was a little curious. Zheng Yinhong said in a low voice, "I know that Marquis has established the Yanhuang Chamber of Commerce, and I have always been fascinated. I wonder if Marquis can let me join the Yanhuang Chamber of Commerce? 10% of the shares of the Immortal Tea Garden in exchange for a membership in the Yanhuang Chamber of Commerce." In the long run, he was still losing out. After all, the future potential of the Immortal Tea Garden was limitless. However, the reason why he made this suggestion was mainly because he felt that 40% of the shares of the Immortal Tea Garden was too hot. Giving out 10% in exchange for a membership in the Yanhuang Chamber of Commerce would not only protect himself, but also open up a path for the Zheng family. Li Zishuan pondered for a moment, then nodded and said, "I have no objections, but I have an idea. I will give you 10% of the shares of the Immortal Tea Garden. Boss Chow, Boss Lin, Boss Feng, you all can discuss and give 10% of the original shares of the Yanhuang Chamber of Commerce to Owner Zheng. As a reward, this 10% of the shares of the Immortal Tea Garden will be divided equally according to the corresponding ratio. How about it?" Back then, the first batch of members of the Yanhuang Chamber of Commerce was determined through an auction. The shares that each person held were determined according to the ratio of the money that they paid. And the amount of goods that they received from the workshop in the future was directly related to the shares that they held in the Chamber of Commerce. To put it simply, Li Zixuan was now using the 10% of the shares of the Immortal Tea Garden that Zheng Yinhong gave up to exchange for 10% of the shares of the Yanhuang Chamber of Commerce with Chao Wendong and the rest. In any case, he would definitely not lose out in this exchange. He still held 60% of the shares of the Immortal Tea Garden. Chao Wendong and the rest looked at each other and nodded. They all said, "We are willing to follow Marquis's arrangements." They were not stupid. The goods that Zheng Yinhong received from the Strange Taste Pavilion workshop were to be shipped to Jiangnan to be sold. It did not clash with their business at all. On the contrary, with 10% of the shares of the Immortal Tea Garden, they would be able to get involved in the tea business. And originally, they would not have been able to get the shares of the Immortal Tea Garden, because with their connections, they would not be able to help Li Zixuan set up the Immortal Tea Garden. But now that Li Zixuan had given them the opportunity, how could they not seize it? Li Zixuan nodded his head in satisfaction and said, "In this way, everyone is happy. In a while, I will mark a few of the best locations for the Immortal Tea Garden on the map. When the time comes, Manor Head Zheng can help to set up the Immortal Tea Garden in these places. As for the cost of setting up the Immortal Tea Garden, we will share it." Zheng Yinhong clasped his hands and said, "Yes, Marquis." Li Zixuan smiled, then raised his teacup and said, "Come, everyone, let's use tea as wine to celebrate the addition of a new member to our flaming yellow Chamber of Commerce today." After settling the matters of the Immortal Tea Garden, Zheng Yinhong took the map that Li Zixuan had given him and set off for Jiangnan in the afternoon. In Chang and City, he left Zheng Qianjun to look after the team. On the map that Li Zixuan had given him, the best locations for the Immortal Tea Garden were marked. These locations were almost all places that produced Longjing tea in his previous life, such as Lion Peak Mountain, Longjing Mountain, Chessboard Mountain, Shangtianju, Wangjia Mountain, Waxberry Ridge, Manjulong, White Crane Peak, and dozens of other mountain peaks. Li Zixuan wanted to use the memory of his previous life to quickly monopolize the production areas of these high-quality tea leaves. Even if someone later found a way to make high-quality tea, the quality of the tea leaves would be far inferior to the Immortal Tea. Of course, other than the task of setting up the Immortal Tea Garden, Zheng Yinhong's top priority in returning to Jiangnan this time was to go to the existing tea mountains and send people to pick a batch of fresh tea leaves as soon as possible to make tribute tea. As for the Immortal Tea Garden, it was estimated that they would have to wait until next year to produce tea. After all, they still had to transplant the tea trees. Chapter 1364. The reason why Zheng Yinhong was willing to fully assist Li Zixuan in opening up the tea plantation, other than being driven by profit, was because he felt Li Zixuan's sincerity. He had interacted with many officials in Jiangnan and Chang, but Li Zixuan was the first official to talk business with him as an equal. This moved Zheng Yinhong and gave him a good impression of Li Zixuan. Looking at Chao Wendong and the others' attitude towards Li Zixuan, it wasn't hard to understand why Zheng Yinhong swore loyalty to Li Zixuan and would never betray Li Zixuan. "If the ruler treats me like a country knight, I will repay him like a country knight." The scholar officials were willing to die for those who knew them well. Zheng Yinhong, who had always kept his promises, was also willing to pledge his loyalty to Li Zixuan, who treated him like a national scholar. It was true that businessmen valued profit, but the businessmen of this era also yearned for recognition. Li Zixuan's sincerity and Li Zixuan's equal treatment were the most important factors that moved Zheng Yinhong to be loyal to such a superior. Zheng Yinhong felt that as long as Li Zixuan didn't fall, the Zheng family would prosper forever. At the same time, the news that Li Zixuan had a magical tea leaf and a magical tea brewing method silently spread. After all, there was no such thing as a wall that didn't have a crack. Some of the civil and military officials close to Li Zixuan took a break from their busy lives and went to Yinshan to find Li Zixuan to drink tea. Fang Xianling, Zhang Sun Wuji, Qin Xiong, Cheng Yaojin, Li Jing, Li Ji, Yuqi Jingde, and the others were basically in groups of 3 to 5. They said they were visiting Yanhuang College, but their real purpose was to drink tea. In the end, when Mr. Li Gang saw that his tea leaves were getting less and less, he couldn't help but reprimand this group of shameless old men. Only then did the wave of civil and military officials visit Yinshan was slightly reduced. However, Li Zishuan was bleeding profusely. After those old fellows tasted the deliciousness of the celestial tea, they all asked him for tea leaves. However, he didn't have much in stock, but these old officials treated him well, so he couldn't refuse. In the end, he could only send a small box of tea leaves from door to door. Yes, it was a small box. Li Zishuan custom-made a small wooden box. One box could be drunk about 10 times. Although it was a little stingy, it was the limit of what he could do. If he had to blame something, he could only blame the taste of the immortal tea. Think about it. Even old drunkards like Wang Ji and Cheng Yaojin liked to drink tea. How could the taste be bad? It was a pity that Wei Zheng was far away in Hunan province. Otherwise, this old troll would definitely come to ask for tea leaves. Li Zishuan, who didn't have much in stock, only hoped that Zheng Yinhong could quickly send a batch of stir-fried immortal tea to Chang'an. Yes, he also taught Zheng Yinhong how to stir-fry the immortal tea. Jiangnan province was nearly 1,000 miles away from Chang'an. If fresh tea leaves were to be transported to Chang'an and then processed, the transportation cost would be too high. Therefore, Li Zishuan asked Zheng Yinhong to pick, stir-fry, and process the tea leaves on the spot. When the time came, the finished product would be directly sent to Chang'an. Early in the morning, Li Zishuan had just finished his sword practice and was about to go to Yanwang College. However, at the gate of the college, he met someone he didn't expect to see. Sanbao. Li Zishuan looked at the disheveled, dirty, and ragged beggar in front of him. Seeing that the beggar's face was very familiar, Li Zishuan thought seriously for a moment before he suddenly cried out in surprise. "Young master, Sanbao is back. Sanbao is finally back. Woo-woo." Sanbao looked at Li Zishuan in a daze. Seeing that Li Zishuan recognized him, he immediately knelt on the ground and hugged Li Zishuan's thigh, crying and wailing. The few soldiers behind him also quickly knelt down. These people were sent by Li Zishuan to follow Sanbao to search for oars. Get up quickly. What happened to you? Didn't I send you to Sichuan to search for oars? Why are you in such a sorry state?" Sanbao's miserable cries alarmed the people in the courtyard. Han Yushi and Lan came out one after another. The guards outside the courtyard, Pang Feiji, Lu Feng, Lu Yun, and the other guards also looked over. Li Zishuan quickly pulled Sanbao up from the ground and asked. It would have been better if he didn't ask. The moment he asked, Sanbao cried even harder. With snot and tears, he said, "Young master, Sanbao is back." Sanbao almost couldn't make it back, but Sanbao found a vanadium mine for you. Li Zishuan could feel the sadness from Sanbao's words, so he quickly asked, "Why did you almost not make it back? Did someone in Sichuan make things difficult for you?" At this point, Li Zishuan's tone became very unfriendly. Someone actually dared to bully the people he sent out. Wasn't this a slap to his face? Sanbao slightly controlled his emotions and replied, "Young master, we found a vanadium mine on a mountain in Feng province, but we were caught by a group of people from the Chang tribe. They said that we offended their sacred mountain and wanted to kill us. Later, we revealed our identities and met the leader of the Chang tribe. He asked us why we were digging for ores on the sacred mountain. I told him the truth and said that I was helping you find a vanadium mine, but he didn't believe me. He said that he had never heard of a vanadium mine on the mountain and wanted to kill us. Later, the local county magistrate came with people in time and saved our lives. However, the Chang tribe didn't allow us to take the ore away from the mountain. Later, we took advantage of the darkness to steal a few pieces of ore, but we were discovered by the Chang tribe. They sent people to chase us all the way until we left Yiyang County. At that time, we completely got rid of them, but at that time, we lost all our travel expenses and fishing talismans. We could only beg along the way and relied on the help of a few kind-hearted people to finally make it back." Li Zishuan was silent for a while after hearing this. He had expected that there might be some twists and turns in this trip. Although the Sichuan region had long been included in the political system of the Central Plains dynasty, due to the geographical isolation and distance from the political center, and the fact that there were many Di, Chong, Man, Liao, and other ethnic groups in the Sichuan region and around the basin, the land of Sichuan had become the border of the dynasty. There were many noble clans and tribes, and the various forces were also tangled and complicated. Therefore, he had previously told Sanbao to try his best not to have any conflicts with the local forces. However, he didn't expect Sanbao to be in such a miserable state, almost starving to death on the way. After a moment of silence, Li Zishuan patted Sanbao's shoulder and said, "Sanbao, you've suffered. Don't worry. I'll help you get back at the Chong tribe for all the grievances you've suffered." "Yes, yes." Sanbao nodded vigorously. Then he scratched his head and said, Young master, is there anything to eat? Sanbao is hungry." The few soldiers behind him also rubbed their stomachs and looked at Li Zishuan with an embarrassed expression. Li Zishuan hurriedly ordered, "Xiaohe, quick, go get some food and drinks for Sanbao and the others." "Yes, young master." Xiaohe hurriedly ran into the house. Li Zishuan said to Sanbao, "And the rest of you, come in and sit down to eat and drink slowly. You've all worked hard along the way." "Yes, young master." "Yes, Marquis." After a while, Xiaohe and Shi brought in a bowl of freshly cooked noodles and a large bowl of chopped green onion and egg soup. This was commonly known as minced meat noodles. Each of them had a bowl of noodles and some minced meat on top. Sanbao and the rest sat on the stone table in the courtyard and wolfed down the noodles. "Ah, Sanbao, eat slowly. No one is going to snatch it from you. Don't choke." It was Lanner's first time seeing someone wolfing down food like that. She was shocked and hurriedly tried to persuade him, which was rare of her. "Oh, thank you for your concern. Sanbao won't choke." Sanbao replied to Lan as he ate. In his heart, he was thinking that it was better to choke to death than starve to death. He hadn't eaten such delicious noodles in a long time. "Lan don't disturb them." Li Zishuan patted Lan's head and said softly. Although he had many questions to ask Sanbao, he knew that now was not the time to ask. It was more important to let Sanbao and the rest eat their fill first. "Oh," Lan nodded and stood for a while before going out to play. This little girl wasn't the type to stay idle. After more than 15 minutes, Sanbao and the rest finally put down their bowls and chopsticks. The few of them had actually finished the bowl of noodles and minced meat. They were like reincarnated hungry ghosts. "Burp!" Sanbao and the rest burped and stood up from the stone bench. They bowed to Li Zishuan and said, "Thank you, young master." "Thank you, Marquis." Li Zishuan waved his hand and said, All of you can go back. Wash up and have a good rest. I will reward you later." Sanbao, stay." The few soldiers quickly bowed and said, "Yes, Marquis." With that, they left. Li Zishuan looked at Sanbao and asked, "Sanbao, you said that the local Chong people see the mine as a sacred mountain. Why is that?" Sanbao thought for a while and replied, "Young master, I think I heard a farmer mention this before. That mountain is called the Lan family volcano. It is said that this mountain can attract soldiers from all over the world. As long as someone passes by it with a sword, he or she will feel that the sword is being pulled by some kind of force. Later on, people think that this mountain has the power of the gods and won't let anyone go up it. Lan family volcano." Li Zishuan frowned. He suddenly felt that this name was somewhat familiar. He quickly searched for relevant information in his mind. A moment later, his eyes widened as he said in disbelief, "You're saying that the mountain is called the Lan clan's volcano? Is there a mountain called the Sharp Mountain next to it?" Sanbao was stunned and looked at Li Zishuan as if he was looking at a god. She said, "Young master, how did you know that there's a sharp mountain next to it? You are really amazing. There is indeed a sharp mountain next to the Lan family volcano, but Sanbao hasn't gone up there yet." Li Zishuan's face was filled with excitement. He said, "That's great. That's great." He could basically conclude that the place that Sanbao and the rest went to was the modern-day Sichuan Panzhihua. The Lon family volcano and the Sharp Mountain were the largest natural vanadium titanium magnetite mine in the modern day. In the 21st century, other than the United States, which extracted vanadium from potassium, vanadium, and uranium, or the other major vanadium-producing countries extracted vanadium from vanadium titanium magnetite. Sanbao and the rest had really found a treasure this time. The local Chang people mistook this mountain for a divine mountain. Li Zishuan thought that this was ridiculous because the magnetite in vanadium titanium magnetite was very strong. It was normal for it to attract iron swords. It had nothing to do with divine force at all. Oh, right. Young master, these are the ores that we stole from there. We dropped a lot of them when we were running for our lives. There are only 2 left. Sanbao took out 2 fist-sized dark gray stones from his clothes and handed them to Li Zishuan. Li Zishuan took the stones. From their appearance, they looked like iron ores. However, upon closer inspection, the color of the stones was slightly lighter than iron ores. They were also slightly lighter than iron ores. After observing for a while, Li Zishuan looked at Sanbao and said, "If I let you lead the way, can you still remember the way?" Sanbao nodded and said, "Yes, yes. Young master, don't worry. Sanbao definitely knows the way." Li Zishuan nodded and said, "Then you can go and rest first. You did a good job this time. I will definitely reward you handsomely." Sanbao revealed his bootlicker nature and said, "Hee. It is Sanbao's honor to be able to help young master. Sanbao doesn't dare to ask for a reward." Li Zishuan smiled and said, "Oh, if that's the case, then I will fulfill your wish and not reward you." Huh? The smile on Sanbao's face suddenly disappeared and was replaced with a sad face. He said pitifully, "Young master." Sanbao, just All right. You should go back and rest. As for the reward you deserve, this young master will definitely not give you a single copper coin less." Li Zishuan laughed and said. Han Yushi and the rest also smiled. Sanbao scratched his head and realized that Li Zishuan was just teasing him. He was not angry. Instead, he smiled and bowed. "Sanbao thanks young master." Li Zishuan nodded and said something to his wife before leaving with the vanadium titanium magnetite. "Mr. Wang, please come with me for a while." After arriving at the academy, Li Zishuan went to the chemistry department's office and found Wang Ji. "Oh, Yamacho, I'll be right there." Wang Ji was memorizing the Yinhuang College's confidentiality regulations. When he heard Wang Ji, he quickly put down the booklet and followed Li Zishuan out of the office. Speaking of which, whether it was the students or the teachers in the academy, they would take out the academy's confidentiality regulations and madly memorize them whenever they were free. After all, this week's confidentiality examination was of great importance to everyone, and no one would not take it lightly. "Yamacho, why are you looking for me?" Wang Ji followed Li Zishuan into the meeting room and asked eagerly. He was in a hurry. Li Zishuan took out the vanadium titanium magnetite and smiled. "Mr. Wang, the people I sent out have found the vanadium titanium magnetite. The most important thing now is to verify if there is vanadium in it." "What? Found the vanadium titanium magnetite? Then what are we waiting for, Yamacho? Let's go straight to the workshop." Wang Ji was pleasantly surprised. Li Zishuan had told him that vanadium pentoxide was an important catalyst in the process of producing sulfuric acid. Now that they had the vanadium titanium ore, it meant that the workshop could finally produce sulfuric acid on a large scale. Chapter 1365. Yinhuang College. In the meeting room of Guanghua Building, Wang Ji's face was full of excitement. He pulled Li Zishuan to the workshop, completely forgetting that he wanted to deal with Li Zishuan as soon as possible so that he could go back and memorize the confidentiality regulations. As the leader of the chemistry department, Wang Ji had the most thorough understanding of the chemistry textbooks compiled by Li Zishuan. No one understood the important role of sulfuric acid better than him. It could be said that in the chemistry textbooks written by Li Zishuan, a considerable number of chemical reactions were directly or indirectly related to sulfuric acid. As early as last year, Wang Ji had experimented by himself and used green alum to produce dilute sulfuric acid. However, that method could produce dilute sulfuric acid in small amounts. But it was obviously impossible to produce sulfuric acid or concentrated sulfuric acid in large amounts. Later, Li Zixuan introduced him to the method of using sulfur dioxide and vanadium pentoxide as a catalyst, heating it in the air to produce sulfur trioxide, and then producing concentrated sulfuric acid. He had been looking forward to Li Zixuan quickly finding the legendary vanadium mine, but he didn't expect to wait for 4 months. Now that the vanadium mine had finally arrived, how could he not be excited? Under Wang Ji's urging, the two quickly arrived at the ironworks of the workshop. But at this time, Wang Ji was a little confused because he didn't know how to extract vanadium from vanadium titanomagnetite. Wang Ji looked at Li Zixuan and asked, "Yamacho, how do we refine this or to extract the vanadium from it?" In fact, Li Zixuan had been thinking about this problem on the way here. Hearing this, he replied in a deep voice. When he heard this, he replied, "The vanadium titanomagnetite mainly contains metal oxides such as iron, vanadium, titanium, chromium, cobalt, and other metals. We can put it in a blast furnace and mix it with soda ash for roasting. Under the action of high temperature and sodium salt as an additive, the silicon oxide tetrahedron and silicon oxide tetrahedron containing vanadium in the vanadium titanomagnetite will be destroyed, exposing the vanadium and transforming it into pentavalent vanadium. After that, the sodium ions in the soda ash would react with it. The resulting sodium vanadate salt would be soluble in water, but the residues of the other impurities would not be soluble in water. Therefore, we can use the method of soaking in water to hydrolyze the crude vanadium, then filter out the impurities and precipitate the refined vanadium salt from the solution. After the refined vanadium salt is precipitated and calcined, we can obtain the catalyst we need, vanadium pentoxide. The method Li Zixuan was talking about was called the process of extracting vanadium by roasting with salt. It was a relatively primitive method of extracting vanadium. The sodium salt could be used as the choice of soda ash, sodium carbonate, sodium sulfate, or table salt, sodium chloride. Comparatively speaking, the roasting effect of sodium chloride was the best, but sodium chloride would undergo a redox reaction at high temperatures to produce chlorine gas, which would seriously pollute the atmosphere. Therefore, Li Zixuan did not choose this method. In addition, the main advantage of adding sodium carbonate for roasting was that the equipment needed was simple and the raw materials needed were readily available. For example, soda ash. Although no one in ancient times could synthesize it artificially, there was a lot of soda ash in nature. However, the drawback of this method was also obvious, and that was waste. Because the main product of this method was vanadium pentoxide, the other metal components such as iron, titanium, chromium, cobalt, and so on were directly filtered out as residues, especially iron. It should be known that the iron content of vanadium titanomagnetite was as high as 20% to 30%, but the vanadium content was less than 2%. Therefore, this method of extracting vanadium was a great waste for iron. However, Li Zixuan did not care about this now. What he needed was vanadium, not iron. Wang Ji now had a good foundation in chemistry, but after listening to Li Zixuan's theory of the vanadium extraction process, he still could not quite catch up. He stood there for a long time before he finally reacted. Then, he nodded and said, "Since Yamacho has a method, then I will do it. However, I still need Yamacho's guidance from the side." An old man in his 40s or 50s asking for guidance from a young man in his teens. This scene was strange no matter how one looked at it. However, when Wang Ji said this, his tone was natural and there was no awkwardness at all. He admitted that he was far inferior to Li Zixuan in chemistry. Good. Then let's begin. Li Zixuan nodded and said. While Li Zixuan was immersed in scientific research, in Chang'an City, in the palace, old Li, who had just finished the morning court, was enjoying tea with his family in the garden of the West Court. He was now completely in love with the taste of the immortal tea. If someone were to bring him a cup of the same tea as before, he would definitely ask someone to pour it away, because compared to this immortal tea, the old tea was simply rubbish. In addition, Old Li clearly remembered that when Li Zixuan delivered the divine tea to him that day, he also gave him a note. On the note, it was clearly written, "Drinking it can refresh one's spirit, reduce fatigue, aid digestion, and slow down aging." Yes, that was what he valued the most about the slow down aging part. Last year, when Li Er asked Li Zixuan if there was a way to live forever in the world, Li Zixuan mercilessly refuted him. Therefore, he cannot ask Li Zixuan if the immortal tea could really slow down aging. However, he believed that Li Zixuan would definitely not say such things, so he chose to believe him. What's more, the immortal tea itself tasted so good. What reason did he have not to like drinking it? In fact, drinking tea could slow down aging. This Li Zixuan really did not lie to Li Er. This was because the tea polyphenol in the tea had an inhibitory effect on various oxidative enzymes and could efficiently eliminate free radicals. It was the fastest antioxidant pathway. At the same time, it could inhibit the production of free radicals and activate the body's antioxidant enzyme system. Research showed that the antioxidant effect of tea polyphenol was significantly better than vitamin E, and the anti-aging effect was 18 times stronger than vitamin E, and it had a synergistic effect with vitamin C and E. However, if he wanted to rely on tea to live forever, then Li Zixuan could only say to Old Li, "You think too much." If the tea was really so amazing, then wouldn't the people who sold tea in the modern era all become rich? Huh, Guanyin maid, you say Li Zixuan really has a big mouth. He actually named this tea as the immortal tea? Li Er took a sip of tea and said contentedly. Empress Zhongsun smiled and said, "The tea brewed from the tea leaves has a clear color and a smooth taste. When drunk, the tea fragrance is endless. Moreover, drinking this tea can reduce fatigue and slow down aging. Just based on these, I think it is not an exaggeration to call it the immortal tea." Li Er smiled and did not deny it. However, the eyes of Consort Yin, who was sitting opposite him, lit up. She hurriedly asked Empress Zhongsun, "Sister, can this immortal tea really slow down aging?" Women loved beauty, especially the women in the imperial harem, who didn't want to be able to stay young forever. Empress Zhongsun smiled faintly and said, "This is only what I heard from the Marquis of Yong'an. Whether or not younger sister believes, it is up to you." Consort Yin smiled and said, "The Marquis of Yong and is so young, yet he is proficient in both the pen and the sword. Since he said so, it must be true. I just don't know when he can supply large amounts of this immortal tea to the imperial harem." Changle, who was at the side, smiled and said, "After Brother Xiao Xian supplies the immortal tea to the imperial harem, Changle will definitely drink tea every day." Li Changxian was speechless and said, "Changle, how old are you? You're already thinking of slowing down aging?" Li Er also looked at his daughter with a face full of amusement and adoration. Changle smiled sweetly and said, "Changle doesn't want to grow up. This way, I can always accompany Imperial Father, Imperial Mother, and Imperial Brother Crown Prince." As soon as these words were said, it immediately caused laughter everywhere. For a moment, the garden was very warm. After a while, Zhao Song walked over and whispered a few words into Li Er's ear. Li Er's eyes flashed, and then he stood up and said, "I have some matters to deal with. Changle, Chengxian, accompany your mother to drink tea." "Yes, Imperial Father." Changle and Li Chengxian hurriedly stood up and acknowledged. Li Er nodded and led Zhao Song out of the West Court. Li Zixuan's servants came back from the land of Sichuan, right? You said they looked very miserable? After exiting the West Court, Li Er asked as he walked. Zhao Song bowed slightly and said, "Yes, Your Majesty. At the beginning of the year, the Marquis of Yong and sent his servants to Sichuan to search for ores. Many people knew about this matter. This morning, his servants returned to Lantian with a few soldiers. Their clothes were tattered, and they looked very miserable. Lier frowned and said, "Did they encounter bandits on the way? Or did they encounter an accident in Sichuan? But they have Li Zishuan's fish talismans. What kind of accident could they encounter in Sichuan? Could it be that the situation in Sichuan has changed?" Thinking of this, Li Er's expression became incomparably grim. After all, the Tang Empire had just experienced a rebellion. He had to be cautious. Zhao Song's face darkened, and he did not dare to reply. Li Er continued to ask, "Where is Li Zishuan now? His subordinates have suffered such grievances. How can he sit still?" Zhao Song replied, "Your Majesty, the Marquis of Yong, and is currently in the workshop. He must be refining the ores that his servants brought back." Oh, Li Er could not help but heave a sigh of relief. This was because if there was really a situation in Sichuan, Li Zishuan should have come to the palace to report to him immediately and not go to the workshop to refine ores. Li Zishuan was a person who knew his priorities. "All right, you can leave. That kid will definitely enter the palace to look for me." Li Er waved his hand and smiled. On the other side, after nearly 6 hours of painstaking refining, Li Zishuan finally obtained a grayish-black flake of vanadium pentoxide. "Yamacho, is this the catalyst that we need, the vanadium pentoxide?" At this time, Li Zishuan and Wang Ji had already put on their masks. Wang Ji pointed at the grayish-black flake and asked. Li Zishuan grabbed Wang Ji's hand and said, "Don't touch it with your hands. This thing is not only harmful to the respiratory tract, it is also harmful to the skin. Go put on a pair of rubber gloves and put it into a bottle. This thing is basically confirmed to be the vanadium pentoxide that we need. The rest of the experiments can be done later. I have to go to the palace now." Chapter 1366. Your Majesty, the Marquis of Yong, and requests an audience. In the afternoon, in the Suite du Hall, a servant came in and bowed. Speaking of which, Li Zishuan didn't even have time to eat lunch after leaving the workshop and came to the palace to look for Li Er. He was quite hardworking. "Let him in." Li Er smiled faintly and said. After a while, Li Zishuan walked in from outside and bowed to Li Er. "Your subject greets your Majesty." Rise. Li Er nodded and said, "You have been holed up in the Cloud Mountain all day. How come you have the time to come to the palace to see me today?" This was asking the obvious. However, he had to ask the obvious. If he directly said the purpose of Li Zishuan's visit, Li Zishuan would definitely think that he was being monitored, and there would be hostility between the ruler and his subject. Oldie wasn't that stupid. Li Zishuan cupped his hands and said, "Your Majesty, your subject is here today to ask for the mining rights of an ore vein. Your Majesty, please grant me." A while ago, when Guan City was breached and the Chui family's rebel army was annihilated, Li Er not only promoted Li Zishuan to an official position, but also rewarded Li Zishuan with the mining rights of 3 mineral veins. However, at that time, Li Zishuan did not specify which 3 mineral veins they were. It was basically equivalent to Old Li giving him a blank check that he could fill in at will. Today, Li Zishuan wanted to write the name of the Lan family's volcano mineral vein on this check. When Li Er heard this, he couldn't help but laugh. He said, "Yo, are you here to collect a debt from me? Tell me, what vein do you want? Gold mine, silver mine, or copper mine?" Li Zishuan bowed and said, "Your Majesty, your subject doesn't want gold, silver, or copper mines. Your subject only wants a vanadium titanium magnetite or vein in Jiannan province. Your Majesty, please grant me this." After the Qin Dynasty destroyed Ba and Shu, they implemented the county system in Sichuan and established Ba County and Shu County in the former Ba and Shu regions. In the first year of Jingguan, Li Er abolished the state and county system and changed Yi province to Jiannan province. Jiannan Dao was one of the 10 Daos under the heavens. It mainly referred to the 30-plus prefectures and hundreds of counties in the Sichuan region. Li Er was puzzled. Vanadium titanium magnetite? What kind of mine is this? What was its use? Why have I never heard of it? Although he had heard from Zhao Song that Li Zishuan had sent people to Sichuan to look for ores, he did not know what kind of ores Li Zishuan was looking for. let alone what vanadium titanomagnetite was. Li Zishuan cupped his hands and said, "Your Majesty, your humble servant's workshop needs a catalyst called vanadium pentoxide. With it, your humble servant's workshop can mass-produce sulfuric acid. As one of the 3 acids and 2 bases in engineering, sulfuric acid has a wide range of uses. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to call it the cornerstone of Great Tang's industrial industry. And the catalyst can be extracted from vanadium titanium magnetite." Although Lier had not done any in-depth research on chemistry, this was the first time he had seen Li Zishuan introduce something to him so seriously. Thus, he could not help but pay more attention to this vanadium titanomagnetite. "Your Majesty does not know much about engineering. Can you tell me what the sulfuric acid is used for? And that vanadium mine, other than producing sulfuric acid, what else can it be used for?" Asking questions when he did not understand was what made Lier different from other monarchs. In terms of magnanimity, there were very few monarchs who could compare to him. Furthermore, in the Sichuan region, there were many noble clans and tribes. The various powers were tangled and complicated. Old Li had to get a clear understanding of the matter, so that he could weigh whether the vanadium mine in Sichuan was worth mining or not. Li Zishuan thought for a while, and picked out some things that Lier could understand. He answered, "Your Majesty, sulfuric acid has a wide range of uses. In the future, it could be used to make more powerful gunpowder, extract stone paint, and make fertilizer that can increase the yield of crops. In the future, sulfuric acid can be used to refine copper and increase the purity of copper. In the future, the generators in the Ba River hydropower station will require refined copper. Furthermore, with sulfuric acid, your humble servant can also make batteries. As for the stone paint, it was petroleum. Before Shun Kua's Dream Creek writings, there were records of petroleum in the book of the former Han." Hearing this, Lier's face was filled with shock. He muttered, "More powerful gunpowder? There is more powerful gunpowder in this world. Fertilizer that can increase the yield of crops? Also, where are the batteries that you mentioned just now?" The things that Li Zishuan said were all inconceivable to Lier. He couldn't help but be shocked. Li Zishuan smiled and replied, "Your Majesty, the gunpowder that your humble servant offered earlier was the most primitive, simplest, and of course, the weakest type of gunpowder. The gunpowder that your humble servant mentioned just now is more than 10 times more powerful. Just 100 caddies is enough to destroy half a city. As for the fertilizer that can increase the yield of crops, it can increase the yield of crops by 30 to 40%. However, sulfuric acid alone is unable to produce powerful gunpowder and fertilizer. The industrial foundation of the workshop is still needed. As for the batteries, once we have sulfuric acid, we can immediately start making them. Your Majesty should know that your humble servant made a battery for the telegraph machine. Compared to the previous battery, this battery has more power. When marching to war, with the battery, it can ensure that the telegraph machine can maintain communication with the rear for a long time." When Lier heard this, he couldn't help but be moved. Whether it was powerful gunpowder or batteries, he wanted them both. Thus, he smiled and said, "Good, good, good. This battery must be made as soon as possible. As for the powerful gunpowder you mentioned, there's no need to rush. Another type of gunpowder is enough. Besides, I'm still very confident in the combat power of the Tang army." Li Zishuan smiled and said, "Your Majesty is wise. Your humble servant also believes that with your Majesty's wisdom and martial prowess, the Tang army will be able to sweep the 4 directions and dominate the 4 seas. In addition, other than making sulfuric acid, the vanadium can also be used to forge divine weapons." "Divine weapons? What divine weapons?" Lier was immediately puzzled. Li Zishuan replied, "Your Majesty, currently the workshop can already mass-produce high-quality steel. If steel is a tiger, then vanadium is a wing. Adding vanadium and steel is like adding wings to a tiger. Adding a few % of vanadium and steel can greatly increase the elasticity and strength of the steel. It also has better resistance to wear and tear, and can resist both high temperature and extreme cold. If this vanadium steel is used to forge swords, although it can't be said to be able to cut through iron like mud, it's not far from it. Good. What a divine weapon. Lier was immediately fascinated by the vanadium ore. He said excitedly, I have previously promised you the mining rights of the 3 ore veins. Since this vanadium ore is so important to you, there's no harm in giving it to you. Furthermore, I see that you have a card up your sleeve today. Could it be that you have found the vanadium, or you won in Fengzhou of Jianan Circuit? Upon hearing this, Li Zixuan was overjoyed and quickly replied, Your Majesty, at the beginning of this year, your humble servant sent a servant to the Shu lands to search for vanadium ore. Fortunately, your humble servant did not fail his mission and found a large amount of vanadium titanium magnetite ore on a mountain in Fengzhou. With this ore, the Tang Empire will definitely need it for hundreds of years. However, Lier smiled in his heart. He thought that they had finally come to the main topic. He smiled faintly and said, However what? Li Zixuan bowed and said, Your Majesty, according to your humble servant, this mountain was mistaken by the local Chang people as a divine mountain. They do not allow outsiders to invade the divine mountain, let alone mine from it. Therefore, Lier frowned and said, Divine mountain? Is there a reason behind this? In reply to your Majesty, this is nothing but nonsense. The local Chang people found that the mountain was very attractive to the soldiers and thought that there was a divine force behind it. However, it was just the strong magnetic force of the vanadium titanium magnetite ore in the mountain. However, the Shu lands are isolated and most of the locals believe in the power of ghosts and gods. Therefore, it would not be easy to explain to them clearly. For this reason, your humble servant and general were almost killed by the local Chang people. Your Majesty, please uphold justice for your humble servant. Li Zixuan bowed and said in a deep voice. The Chang people. Lier's face gradually darkened. After a moment of silence, he slowly said, Back then, when the heroes were fighting for supremacy in the Central Plains, the noble families and other local powers in Shu lands colluded with the officials of the counties and counties to protect themselves and watch the situation change. After my imperial father took control of Shu lands, he sent letters to the various counties and counties. From Shangluo in the east to Shu lands in the south, the county officials, bandit commanders, and the chiefs of the Dichong tribes fought for their descendants to submit. There were hundreds of replies every day. In the face of strong military pressure, the noble families of Shu lands all submitted to the Great Tang. Towards these local tyrants who surrendered, the imperial court mainly adopted a policy of using both kindness and coercion. On one hand, it was to prevent them from becoming too powerful in the future, and, on the other hand, it was to prevent them from rebelling out of anger. A few hundred years ago, Liu Bang rose to power in Shu lands. During the Chu and Han Wars, Shu lands not only provided the Han army with an endless supply of soldiers, it also provided a strong logistical support for the war. Wherever the Han army was, there would be military supplies provided by Shu lands. 5 years later, during the Battle of Gaixia, Xiang Yu committed suicide in the Wu River and Liu Bang ascended to the throne. This started the 400 years of history of the two Han dynasties. Bashu contributed all of its energy to Liu Bang's empire, supporting the war for many years with its own strength. It made an indelible contribution to the founding of the Great Han Dynasty. Hence, Bashu could be said to be the place where the Han Dynasty rose. Thus, after Liu Bang ascended to the throne, he placed a lot of importance on Shu lands. He treated Chuanzhong as the territory of the imperial court, and the Great Han Dynasty would rule it directly. He would never give the vassals in the Shu lands. In fact, Imperial Father and I have always paid great attention to the governance of Sichuan. In order to balance out the various powers in Sichuan and to maintain the stability of Sichuan, I have recruited the children of the leaders of Sichuan and given them to them. I have also sent them to the outside to promote them. On the other hand, I have sent the Empress's uncle to Sichuan to serve as the chief clerk of E Province's Governor General's office. I have asked him to help me govern Sichuan and let the people of Sichuan return to Great Tang as soon as possible. In addition, I plan to give Ke the title of King of Shu and give him the title of Governor of Yi Province. He will be in charge of Yi Province, Mian Province, Jian Province, Jia Province, Ling Province, Yi Province, Mei Province, Meng Province, Jian Province, and Chong Province. He will also be in charge of Jiao Province, Nanning Province, and Hui Province, a total of 36 provinces. When he is a few years older, I will send him to Shu lands to show the importance I place on Shu lands. Now that there is such an important mine in the Shu lands, I will issue a decree for the governor of Yi Province to personally negotiate with the Chong people on your behalf. Once the negotiations are completed, you can send people there to mine the mine. The uncle of Emperor Zhang's son and the governor of Yi Province that Li Er mentioned was Gao Shilian, who later became the prime minister of the Great Tang. After listening to old Li Zishuan talk for so long, Li Zishuan had a rough understanding of the current situation in Shu lands. Of course, he did not expect Li Er to change Li Ku's title from King of Han to King of Shu under such circumstances. However, according to the official history, even if he did not appear, Li Er would have made Li Ku the king of Shu this year. Sometimes, history was shockingly similar. At this moment, Li Zishuan clasped his hands and said, "Your Majesty, when negotiating with the Chong people, it is better to be soft than hard. If Governor Gao is blocked in the negotiation, this subject can give him some advice." Li Er could not help but laugh. "Oh, what kind of good plan do you have?" Li Zishuan bowed and said, "The Chong people mistake the mine as a sacred mountain. This subject will send people to explain it to them when the time comes. Once this mine is mined, it will bring endless benefits to the local Chong people. The most obvious benefit is that they will earn more money every year. Although the Chong people live in tribes, I believe that they all like money and the exquisite products of the Central Plains, right?" Li Er finally understood. Li Zishuan was planning to use a mine to feed the surrounding people. It was indeed a good idea. This is also good. We will send an order to the Empress uncle in a moment and have him deal with this matter at his discretion. When necessary, we will ask you for advice." Li Er nodded and smiled. "Thank you, Your Majesty." Li Zishuan clasped his hands in satisfaction. After leaving the palace, Li Zishuan went straight back to Yinshan. When he passed by Yanwang College, he thought for a moment, then turned around and walked in. He called Li Zishuan out of the classroom and brought him to his office. Li Zishuan sat on the sofa and smiled. "Little Ku, you should have learned most of the financial management knowledge that I taught you, right?" Li Ku clasped his hands and said, "I have not learned much of Yamacho's knowledge. How can I say that I have learned most of it?" Li Zishuan could not help but laugh. You brat, you are still being modest. All right, I called you here today because I have something important to discuss with you. Yamacho, please speak." Li Ku sat up straight and looked at Li Zishuan. He was all ears. Li Zishuan nodded and said in a deep voice, "I went to the palace today. According to His Majesty, he intends to change your title to Prince of Shu and give you the position of Governor of Yi Province. You will be in charge of the affairs of Shu Province's 36 provinces. You need to be mentally prepared." Li Ku was shocked when he heard this. He panicked and said, "Yamacho, does this mean that His Majesty is going to send me to Shu Province?" He was now learning from Li Zishuan at Yanwang College. He had never heard of financial management knowledge before. He was very happy and fulfilled. He did not want to leave so soon. Chapter 1367. Little Ku, you don't have to panic. Based on His Majesty's intentions, He will let you go to Shu lands after a few years when you are older. In the next few years, you will still be in Chong, and as the Viceroy of Yizhou. Therefore, before you go to your fief, you should study hard and enrich yourself so that you can become a virtuous king and guard a region for His Majesty. In the Yamacho's office in Yanwang College, Li Zishuan looked at Li Ku and earnestly instructed. Li Zishuan was very satisfied with Li Ku as his student. Li Ku was very talented and could learn everything with just one lesson. He was proficient in both the pen and the sword, and had the demeanor of a gentleman. Li Zishuan had high hopes for Li Ke. In the future, Li Ke would definitely be one of the students who would bring Yanhuang College to greater heights. Li Ke stood up and bowed respectfully to Li Zishuan. I will follow Yamacho's teachings and never forget them. Li Zishuan nodded and asked, Little Ke, do you not want to go to Shu Lands? Li Ke was stunned when he heard this. After a moment, he shook his head and said softly, So what if I want to go? So what if I don't want to go? As a prince of Great Tang, there will be a day when I have to leave the capital, leave my father, mother, teachers, and classmates, and go to a faraway fief to guard a region for Great Tang. This is my mission. Everyone could hear the helplessness and sadness in his words. Li Zishuan stood up and patted Li Ke's shoulder. Then he walked to the bedside with his hands behind his back and looked out the window at the Cloud Mountain and the village at the foot of the Cloud Mountain. He sighed and said, Little Ke, as a member of the imperial family, there will be many helplessness. However, how many people can truly do as they wish and be unrestrained in this world? Every single one of us is born with our own mission. While you are lamenting the helplessness of fate, you don't know how many people in the world are envious of you. They are envious that you are a member of the royal family. Once you reach adulthood, you will be able to rush to your fief and become a free and unfettered prince. Life is like a city surrounded by many cities. The people outside the city want to come in, but the people inside the city want to come out. Therefore, in my opinion, instead of running around, it is better to accept reality, accept one's identity, and complete one's mission to prove one's value in the world. The land of Sichuan was surrounded by mountains on all sides, and there were many rich families and tribes there. If the management was not careful, it would cause internal strife. The lives of the people in Shu are relatively closed and poor. In the future, you will bring what you have learned from Yanhuang College and His Majesty's decree to Shu to take charge of the noble families and tribes there. You will make the people in Shu as rich as the people in Chang'an. His Majesty and Her Majesty will definitely be very pleased, and I will also be very pleased. This was an inheritance of hope that wasn't limited by space or region. Moreover, don't you think that this kind of life is more meaningful? At this point, Li Zishuan turned around and looked at Li Ke with a burning gaze. In fact, he understood Li Ke's feelings very well. Anyone who was chased out of their hometown by their parents at a young age to a strange place would feel helpless. Li Ke was a member of the royal family. Although he was mentally prepared, he couldn't help but feel sad when he knew that he would have to go to Sichuan in a few years. Li Ke's eyes gradually became clear. He bowed deeply and said, Thank you, Yamacho, for your guidance. Ke will definitely bring the knowledge from Yamacho to the people of Shu. Ke, I won't blame the heavens or accuse others anymore. When he was at a loss, Li Zishuan helped him see the fog and pointed out the direction. He was really grateful to Li Zishuan. Hearing this, Li Zishuan smiled and said, Ha ha, that's good. Then from today onwards, you can take some time to practice at Yanhuang Bank. The things I taught you are only limited to theory. Little Ke, you have a combined theory and practice. In the future, if you use these economic methods in Shu, you will definitely reap miraculous results. Yes, Yamacho. Li Ke nodded. Suddenly, he asked curiously, May I know why Yamacho came to the palace to see my father? Oh, your master is here to ask His Majesty for a mine in Sichuan. It's like this. Hearing Li Ke's question, Li Zishuan briefly explained the matter of the vanadium titanium magnetite mine in Feng Province. Hearing this, Li Ke cupped his hands and said, Mountain Elder, don't worry. When I go to Shu Lands to take up my post, I will definitely take care of the people there, so that Mountain Elder can mine in Shu Lands without worries. Li Zishuan laughed and said, Ha ha, then your master will thank your Highness King of Shu first. Ha! Sure enough, in the afternoon, a group of soldiers brought Li Er's imperial edict out of Chang, in city, and headed toward Sichuan. In the evening, a few eunuchs came to Yunshan and invited Li Ke back to Chang and from Yanhuang College. They said that Li Ke had to attend the morning assembly tomorrow. Li Zixuan guessed that tomorrow morning, old Li would definitely announce that Li Ku was going to be the king of Shu. At night, in the palace. In the Ganlu Palace, Li Er looked at the map of Sichuan on the dragon table and was in a daze. At this moment, Zhao Song walked in from outside and stood beside Li Er. He whispered, "Your Majesty, the spy sent to Zhang and Yuezhou a few days ago has returned." Hearing this, Li Er could not help but be shocked. He quickly recovered and asked, "How was it? Did you finally use biological father and mother?" Zhao Song bowed slightly and answered, "Your Majesty, according to the spy's report, Miss Li Yu's father is called Fu Lingyan and her mother is called Lu Yixue. It is said that Fu Lingyan was originally a rich family in Taiyuan. In the third year of the Sui dynasty's day, the world was in chaos and Taiyuan was also affected. In order to avoid the war, Fu Lingyan brought his wife and daughter and fled to Chuyan village in Yuezhou. They stayed there for more than 10 years. However, Fu Lingyan and Lu Yixue passed away last year. Miss Li Yu came to Chang, and from Yuezhou alone. By chance, she met Meng Wenhao. After that, she became friends with the Marquis of Yong, and became a reporter in the Tang Daily's editorial department. 3 years of day. Li Er frowned and seemed to have thought of something. Then, he asked doubtfully, "She's just a young girl. After losing her parents, why would she come all the way to Chang'an?" Zhao Song bowed and said, "I heard from an old woman in Chuyan village that Li Yu is not Fu Lingyan and Lu Yixue's biological daughter. She is an adopted daughter. Li Yu must have come all the way to Chang, and to find her biological father and mother. However, the other villagers in Chuyan village do not know about this. Only the old woman said so. No one knows if it is true or not. Not biological. She is definitely not biological." Li Er stood up and began to pace back and forth with his hands behind his back. After a while, Li Er waved his hand and said, "All right, I know everything. You may leave first." "Yes, Your Majesty." Zhao Song bowed and left. In the hall, only Li Er's soft sigh was left. Li Yu, are you related to him or not?" On Yunsha Mountain, Li Zixuan was thinking about making light bulbs. Previously, when Mo Lingwei had made the microscope, Li Zixuan had said that he wanted to make a light source that was more convenient and stable than the sun. He was talking about light bulbs. Otherwise, relying solely on the reflected sunlight to provide illumination for the microscope would greatly limit the application of the microscope. Therefore, Li Zixuan planned to start making light bulbs. It just so happened that the hydropower station would be completed in a few months. At that time, the first electrical appliance would definitely be light bulbs. After all, it was easier to make these things. Li Zixuan quickly fell asleep as he pondered over the method to make light bulbs in his heart. The next day, early morning, Li Zixuan woke up from his sleep and found that Han Yushi had woken up earlier than him. Wife, what are you planting in this flower pot?" Han Yushi was using a small shovel to loosen the soil for the flower pot. Li Zixuan was curious and quickly went forward to ask, Husband, you're up?" When Han Yushi heard the sound, she quickly turned around and replied with a smile, "Husband, I'm planting Baidizi. In our yard, there are orchids, peonies, and azaleas, but only Baidizi is missing. I asked someone to buy this flower seed from a merchant in Shi City. It's already April now, so it's just right to plant this. Baidizi? What flower is this?" When Li Zixuan heard this, he was puzzled and couldn't help but walk forward. "Husband, don't you know about Baidizi? The Baidizi flower is snow white and looks like a silkworm cocoon. The silk in the cocoon is as fine as silk. It's especially beautiful when it blooms." Han Yushi looked up at Li Zixuan and said with a smile, "It's snow white and looks like a silkworm cocoon? Wife, let your husband take a look at this Baidizi seed." Li Zixuan still didn't understand what Baidizi flower was. He went forward and asked Han Yushi for some Baidizi flower seeds. He put them in his hand and examined them carefully. He saw that the seed coat of the seeds was black, and there was a layer of white hair on the seed coat. When he peeled off the seed coat, there was a layer of milky white membrane-like endosperm attached to the seed coat. Seeing this, Li Zixuan suddenly exclaimed, cotton? Baidizi is actually cotton? In his previous life, he wasn't a spoiled, rich second generation who lived in seclusion. He was a village boy through and through. Of course, he had seen cotton seeds before, which was why he was able to recognize at a glance. In addition, he had long known that cotton was an ornamental flower in the Tang Dynasty, but he didn't know that the white dye Z was actually cotton. Husband, what is cotton? What does Baidizi have to do with cotton? Han Yushi asked curiously. Li Zishuan shook his head and said excitedly, Wife, you just said that Baidizi flower seeds were bought from the Western barbarian merchants. Is it true? How many seeds do they have? It was no wonder that he was excited. Cotton was too important for people in this era. Before cotton was planted on a large scale in ancient China, people could only rely on white clothes and coarse cloth to keep warm in winter. If it weren't for the honeycomb coal and coal stove made by Li Zishuan last winter, many people near Chang and city would have frozen to death like in previous years. Han Yushi replied with a smile. Husband, Baidizi flower seeds were indeed bought from the Western barbarian merchants. They should have a lot of seeds. Husband, how many do you need? I'll ask someone to buy some for you. Of course, I want as many as you have. Wife, to tell you the truth, this Baidizi flower seed can be used to make cotton padded clothes. It has an excellent cold resistance effect. As long as we can plant Baidizi on a large scale in the future, people won't have to suffer in winter anymore. Li Zishuan said with a smile. Han Yushi was shocked and said, Husband, you want to use Baidizi to make clothes? Isn't that too extravagant? Even if it's made, I'm afraid ordinary people can't afford it. Li Zishuan asked curiously, why? Is this Baidizi flower very expensive? Han Yushi nodded and said, Of course it's expensive, husband. This Baidizi flower costs at least a few dozen copper coins. If it's used to make clothes, how many Baidizi flowers would it cost? There were such clothes among the commoners, but they were only worn by wealthy merchants who were worth a lot of money. I heard from mother and father that we used to have clothes made of Baidizi in our residence, but we didn't take them out last winter because we had heating in our house. It was generally believed that cotton spread to the central plains from the north and south. The South Road was the earliest Asian cotton from India. It spread to Hainan Island in Guangdong and Guangxi through Southeast Asia. According to historical records, it spread to Fujian, Guangdong, Sichuan, and other regions at least during the Qin and Han dynasties. The second route was from India to Yunnan through Myanmar. It was around the Qin and Han dynasties. The third route was from Africa to Xinjiang and Hushi Corridor through West Asia. It was around the northern and southern dynasties. The North Road was the western region in ancient books. During the Song and Yuan dynasties, cotton spread to the Yangtze River and Yellow River valleys. By the 13th century, cotton from the North Road had spread to the Wei River valleys in Shaanxi. In fact, as early as the Warring States period, according to Shangshu, some tribes in the South China Sea region began to offer cotton as tribute to the Central Plains. During the Emperor Wu's era, the Yu tribe in Hainan Island had skilled cotton weaving techniques. In China during the Tang Dynasty, cotton cultivation began to be popularized, but at that time, it was still regarded as a precious flower. The Baidizi, clothes made of cotton, were exclusive to officials and nobles. It was still far from being able to wear clothes to keep out the cold for ordinary people. Therefore, although cotton had already spread to China before the Ming Dynasty, it only entered millions of households in the later part of the Ming Dynasty. Before that, the terrifying no cotton in winter thing was the real suffering of the ancient people in China. So expensive? Li Zishuan heard and frowned. According to Han Yushi, cotton in this era was as precious as orchids and peonies. It was no wonder that no one used it to make clothes. No matter how expensive it is, we have to buy it. Wife, how many Baidizi seeds can we buy from the merchants in the western region? Li Zishuan gritted his teeth and said, the reason why cotton was expensive now was that it had not been widely planted. Once it was planted on a large scale and then bred, he would definitely have a lot of cotton in 2 to 3 years. The price of cotton would also be quickly suppressed by him. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.